Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube, coming at you from the Antonio Cromartie studio in Part with Huggies. All brought to you by FanDuel today. And it's part 3 of our series, going team by team, division by division, fixing every team, rebuilding every team. Today it's the AFC and NFC North.
Indeed, the Norths.
The Norths. Tomorrow will be the Souths. Same time, 9 a.m. So extra bonus shows this week, extra Tuesday, extra Friday, every single day, 9 a.m. So we're halfway through the league, Sam. We are giving every team about 15 minutes, just to remind people. We always we always say 5 minutes. That was our joke a few years ago. We're too long-winded. We'll give everybody 15 to 20 minutes. We'll go over a little bit. 15 to 20 minutes, giving you all the moves to rebuild your team.
Yep, and it's draft bet season. We got a few coming in after you made the pitch. People, if you've got a draft bet, somebody was out there tweeting yesterday. They had it was like a bingo card of things that annoy me at draft time. It was like, this guy will never be there here. This guy will never be there. I'm like, have you never watched a draft? Like, we've just come out of a draft where Shedeur Sanders was supposed to be going in the top 10, and he ended up going in the 5th.
He'll never go in the 5th.
Like, what are we doing here? If you've ever watched more than one draft, if you're out here in March the 5th or the 4th yesterday being like, nah, this will never happen in a draft, that would be crazy. Like, these things happen all the time. So if you think something we said is utterly crazy and want to bet, then send us an email. Check the mic at the33team.com.
Yeah, and the way our bets usually go, you put your name to it. If it's bold and crazy enough, we can accept it on our show, and you put up some coffee, or don't, and we'll put up some merch. And if you win, you get some merch, if you're right. We've had some good ones over the last couple of years. But one of the good ones was like who the Ravens would absolutely take if he's on the board at 14. I love that. That's a good, bold take. If this player's on the board, he's a Raven.
Will be the pick.
I guarantee it, right? And that's the type of stuff. Put your name to it. We'll have some fun with it. Check the mic at the33team.com. All right, man. We ready to go? Mm-hmm. Speaking of the Ravens, we're going to start by fixing the Baltimore Ravens. Coming off a disappointing season, defense fell apart. Early in the year, they got a little bit more back on track, but not enough to make the playoffs. A missed field goal is what separated the Ravens from a wild card berth. From winning the division.
Yeah.
And we had some injuries with Lamar Jackson missing a couple games. A lot of draft picks right now. 4, 5, 5th rounders. All 4 picks in the first 4 rounds. So big year as far as draft capital goes for Baltimore, and they're picking at 14 overall coming off this 8-9 season. What are we looking at?
Yeah, and with
for the Ravens,
some key free agents of their own hitting the market, including, as we've mentioned the last couple of shows, Tyler Linderbaum, their center, who is going to be a hot property. They're probably not going to get banked just because the market's going to, it would be, for him to re-sign in Baltimore, feels like he would have to take a fairly significant hometown discount to make that happen, and why would he do that?
So as of right now, the claim is that Eric DeCosta, general manager, says that they've made him a record-breaking offer.
Sure.
Something in that to that effect. We've covered it before, but the idea of the franchise tag, because the franchise tag is applied to all offensive linemen, and the center is
It's basically prohibitive for a center.
Yeah, it's like they're the lowest paid offensive line position. You don't want to pay him top 5 tackle money for a year just to keep him around. So the Ravens are trying to keep Linderbaum. Apparently, his camp has gone dark, maybe, in response to the Ravens. Those are the reports coming out.
Was this the guy?
The agent thing.
Yeah. Was that rap sheet being like this guy's agent, his negotiating style is to just ghost people?
And no one will.
Which made me wonder, is that a euphemism for he doesn't reply to rap sheets text?
Yes. Yes, it is. You're getting to the bottom of this. Agents run the world here. They run the football world. And if you're not nice to the insiders, they're not going to be nice to you.
But it's not even that they're not being nice to you. It's that, like, he's describing your negotiating style as I don't reply to your texts.
So Linderbaum,
maybe he just doesn't reply to your texts. Maybe it's you specifically that, I'm just asking the question.
Consider the source. So Linderbaum, we'll see if they can do something by the beginning of the league year. If they cannot,
I doubt it.
Yes.
Maybe. Look,
I also doubt it, but there's a lot of teams that
Yes.
are ready to break the bank for him.
This happens every year, right? We're a few days away from the start of free agency. And it's like at this point, it seems crazy that anybody who's about to hit the market would actually sign for the team they're still on, because invariably that ends up being a wildly team-friendly deal. And okay, there's benefits to staying where you are. Like, you don't have to move house. Your kids are still in school, whatever. There's reasons why you would want to stay in the place you are. But everybody that signs in the next few days is taking a massive discount by not hitting the market. And I understand that theoretically, even though legal tampering doesn't open for a few days, the illegal tampering has been going on for some time. There were strings of agents meeting with teams during the combine. You know what the number is. You know what I mean? It's not like they're passing up on understanding what the market looks like if they hit the free agent market. But the market tends to accelerate once you hit the real number. Once you hit the actual period, the numbers are going up. That's why you're still leaving money on the table, even though you've explored the market theoretically, illegally at the moment, right? You have a rough idea what the market says you're worth. When the real bullets start flying, that number goes higher. And That's why if you re-sign now, you're leaving money on the table. So maybe Linderbaum signs in the next few days and stays in Baltimore. It would feel unlikely because I think he'd get a lot more money on the open market, because we've talked about how many teams have the money to spend and the glaring need at center should be throwing money his way.
That's going to be the theme of today's show. Is the Ravens need a center. I think every team in the NFC North has a question at center. So like every team we talk about is the revolving door of centers. Tyler Linderbaum, you've got Tyler Biadasz, who's been released from the Washington Commanders. You have Connor McGovern, who's a free agent, and then Ethan Pocic as a free agent for the Browns. So the question, it's not like the first order of business for Baltimore, but it is one of them, is the tackle situation is pretty good with Ronnie Stanley and Roger Rosengarten. I think they may be expecting Emory Jones to just step in at right guard last year, mid-round draft pick for them. But there's a lot of questions on the interior of the offensive line for the Ravens, notably now the center position, and we need to solve that.
Yep.
If they can't get Linderbaum, I'm going to suggest Biadasz for almost everybody on this show. Like if you can't go get, I think Linderbaum is an actual difference maker up front. Run game weapon. He's top five-ish type of center, maybe not as good in pass pro as he is in the run game, but very good in his prime. Biadasz is like league average center. McGovern might be on the rise and maybe slightly above average. Biadasz is like standard league average center right now, dependable, veteran, and he's out there after being released. You probably don't have to pay a ton of money for him, so he might be the guy that, look, if you can't get the high-end centers, either him or Pocic, depending on injury situation, would be the guy.
Pocic's name, the official pronunciation became Posick, even
Posick.
though that doesn't make any sense.
That's all right. Ethan Posick.
I believe that's where we ended up with his name, even though that
Appreciate you
seems to
keeping me
make
on track
less sense than Pocic.
So we got to figure out center.
Yeah. So it is interesting because I think the marketplace, there's probably four that you would be happy starting next year. Linderbaum, you'd be ecstatic with. McGovern, you'd be happy. And then Biadasz and Posick, the two that you'd be okay with. Outside of that, I think you're probably not loving starting any of the other centers available.
Graham Glasgow has been.
The Glasgow?
The Glasgow.
Yeah.
He's been released from the Lions, so they need a sec. Everybody needs a center.
The other interesting name, though, would be Cushenberry, who had been good and then got injured and then was no longer good.
Lloyd Cushenberry from the Tennessee Titans, he's been released as well. The center dominoes that need to fall at the beginning of the league year are just massive.
Cushenberry's one of those weird offensive linemen, though, where you get these guys sometimes that put together most of a career that's like below average, and then suddenly they pop randomly with a really good year. It's like, man, that guy's actually capable of really good play, and then it never happens again.
Yeah,
it's like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, it hurts the old general trajectory of 3 or 4 rough seasons, and then you get there, and then you're kind of this league average player on the offensive line. We do tend to see that often. So Ravens have some questions up front, man. I don't know if they're going to be in the market for Venga Ioane at 14 overall. That was one of our suggestions. That was one of the draft bets that came through that if he is on the board, that would be
take him.
That he will be taken. We will accept that bet. I have to see who it was. But that could be what happens in the draft. But I think, offensive line
it's a
needs
lot
to
like,
be addressed for the Ravens.
I don't want to. I mean, comparing any offensive line to the Chargers feels mean, but it's similar in terms of they probably have two pretty good tackles set. Stanley's good. Rosengarten's been pretty good. The interior, though, you could upgrade all three spots.
Yeah.
If Tyler Linderbaum is gone. So that's not a great spot to be in.
Yeah, and if they want to go the cheaper left guard route, we've gone through some of those players before. I don't know how much Dylan Parham ends up making. There's a plethora of offensive linemen that were out there, including non-starters who are going to break the bank. Chris Paul was on this list, by the way, of linemen who are going to make more than you thought. Blaming the agents again.
Well, it's kind of like, I think there's still a dearth of offensive. I read you that list of the most the combination that the Chargers used the most last season, and you were saying 4 of those guys probably aren't even going to be in the NFL this year. That's the issue we're dealing with here. Is if you don't have an offensive line and you hit free agency, you got to go spend to get the players that are there. And even those players that are there might not be that good, but they're better than what you've got. They're not Bobby Hart.
And linemen have always been hard to find, but even more so now. I think that's why we talk about in the draft, hey, tackles are going to go higher than you think. It's not the worst investment in the world now to take a guard in the first round.
That's why Dan Moore Jr. ends up getting $20 million a year, right? It's because there's not many of those guys hitting the market at all. So if you have a need, you've got to spend to get what's there.
I could see the Ravens using a bunch of those 4th and 5th round picks too on developmental offensive linemen. I don't know if that solves the acute need that they have right now, but just getting those guys in the building and hoping that you steal a starter out of them at some point, I think could be the way to go for the Ravens.
Yeah, it's a tough spot because they don't have a ton of money. They can free up some like everybody, but they're not swimming in cap space. They have a ton of needs. They might need the entire interior of the offensive line. So they're going to have to shop, right? They're going to have to shop at the kind of lower end of the market and just throw some bodies at it and hope that it sticks, and then do the same thing in the draft. Really, they should be bringing in 6 offensive linemen this offseason and hoping that they get a couple of starters out of it.
Defensively, they had been one of the better defenses in the league over the last few years. That thing fell apart last year, and even when it got better, it was like, man, they have 0 pass rush, and they had been. We describe Seattle as having, well, there's no stars, but maybe it's the Mike McDonald thing. There's no stars, but it's just really deep, and the defensive line's deep. That's how we used to describe the Ravens, right? It's like Kyle Van Noy's rushing the passer. They ended up trading for Draymond Jones to try to fix that. No one could get after the quarterback. And in previous years, you'd get a Madubuike and Travis Jones and Van Noy, and you had a bunch of contributors. And last year it was Mike Green underwhelmed as a second rounder. They don't have any real pass rush off the edge right now, at least from what we saw last season.
Last year.
That's the other major need here is Mike Green. Can Mike Green improve in year 2? Absolutely. But you still have upgrades needed here.
Last year was, people were putting out that graphic of the without Geno Smith. Geno Smith left a team that went to the Super Bowl and then rocked up to a team that ended up with the first overall pick. It literally could not have gone worse from a Geno Smith PR point of view than the team that he left versus the team that he went to. You can make the same argument with Mike McDonald, where he stepped off a defense that's been great for years. That defense fell to absolute rack and ruin and couldn't get pressure on anybody, and stepped onto a defense that became a suffocating, unstoppable force and won them a Super Bowl. It's the year of Mike McDonald as well. I think you really saw the power of what he'd been doing schematically on that defense for a few years now. When he's not there, it's like all of a sudden what had been, it's not like the defense on paper looked overwhelming the last several years. It's just that we knew it played better than the level of the sort of overall talent, and some average players were well suited and blah blah blah. But they were always constructed in a slightly unusual way with those. They love those 330-pound bowling ball type of defensive tackles when everyone else had kind of gone away from those players. They were finding pass rush from a group of guys out wide. And all of a sudden, none of that's there. It was just bad last year. Bad start to finish. About the only good thing the defense could say for itself was Kyle Hamilton. And he's only one guy. You can only deploy him in one problem area in the defense.
So this doesn't solve the issue right away, but if you were saying who's a Ravens like edge rusher in the first round, Keldrick Falk as a bigger body, given there's still like a 3-4 base, and they like those big body defensive tackles. They generally like to skew bigger as far as their pass rushers go.
He's going to number 4 though, according.
But he
to
might be going in the top 10.
According to half of the 4 personnel executive that Sando talked to.
The consensus board though, David Bailey's 3, Ruben Bain's 4, Falk is next at 17. There's not, and now with Cassius Howell probably following, I think TJ Parker's in that 20 to 40 range. Hakeem Mesidor's 25 and 22 on the consensus board. There's no like clear, there's no clear pass rush presence in the 10 to 20 range for Baltimore, which is why they might end up going with a guard here.
Yeah, or center. Spencer Fano was getting center reps.
That'd be interesting. That would be interesting. I don't know if I want to take a center at 14 though.
I mean, when did they take Linderbaum? 24, 26.
I would say
something like that.
I would say the second wave of edge rushers are really interesting for them. Whether it's Denai Dennis Sutton, Romello Height, juice off the edge, Gabe Yakis from Illinois. I think there's a second wave of edge rushers maybe in the second round. Malachi Lawrence coming off of his big combine, looking really athletic. Even if Zion Young's there in the second round, he's like this fringe first rounder. Maybe in the second, it might be a good second round edge rush option, just like when they went with Mike Green last year.
Yeah.
So we could go guard in the first if Venga's there, and then grab one of these edge rushes in the second. Try to hit both needs with value plays in both spots.
Venga or Fano, not even to play
Or
center. Fano could. I mean, I think Fano is theoretically an option for probably all 5 offensive line spots.
Probably more of a zone blocking guard. It'd be an interesting one. 33rd team colleagues last night on the call did not love his power for guard.
Wow.
Here in the
Haters.
That's not true. Other questions too. You've got Isaiah Likely hitting free agency, so just tight end depth. Mark Andrews getting a little bit older. It's a deep tight end class, so I think we have to hit that at some point. So what else are we doing here if we're the Ravens?
Yeah, you're right. They've got some issues. I think you're really just targeting just a general restocking of the talent. I'm definitely trying to find some defensive linemen that can make an impact. You can't rely on Mike Green, but hopefully he gets better. That would help a lot. You got to try and find some other options. There's just nobody on the edge that's getting any kind of pressure right now. Their wide receiver room is interesting because they are better when Rashad Bateman is 100% healthy and looking his best, but that doesn't happen very often. So you still have Zay Flowers is really good, Mark Andrews is good and reliable, but outside of those two, it's like if those two don't show up in a game, we got problems. So you still need a wide receiver, I think.
It does feel like the weakest the Ravens have been in a while from a roster perspective. And I know they're coming off the 8-9 season, which was affected by Lamar getting hurt and missing some time. But It does feel like, we could upgrade receiver, major holes on the interior of the offensive line. Now, look, 2 years ago, when they drafted Roger Rosengard, and they went in with very specific needs into the draft, and they found a Rosengarten, and we're fine. But as far as like the last 5 years or so, I think this is the most needs that they've had.
Well, I think it's because it would look very different if the defense had been the way it normally is, and you just tend to ignore that side of the ball and be like, the defense is fine. They'll find some Ravens players, plug them in. The defense overall will play really well. But suddenly you're like, the entire defense played like garbage, and therefore could use an upgrade everywhere. And the offense still has issues on the offensive line and a theoretical need at wide receiver, and one of their 2 tight ends is leaving. So it's like it more than doubles like the problem areas that you're looking at for this roster.
Linebackers a question too. They had Teddy Buchanan last year playing as a rookie. Trenton Simpson's been a little up and down. Do they want to upgrade that spot next to Roquan Smith?
Great year for needing linebackers.
Great year. So if they do, right? I mean, you could, given their other needs, I think you might just roll with Simpson and Buchanan at this point. But if they don't want to, we've said whether it's the draft or finding starters in free agency, it's probably the best year in recent memory to be able to do that. Maybe Nakobe Dean. Get him with the Ravens. Other question would be starting corner next to Nate Wiggins, and maybe 2 corners if Marlon Humphrey is a cut candidate coming off of pretty rough season for him relative to previous expectations, plus the money situation. They need to get younger and better at corner, or they're trusting TJ Tampa which is fine. He's okay. He's an okay player, but we've got some work to do for the Ravens.
We do. We got some major work to do.
So we've given some draft picks. I don't know if you ran through the sim, but if you go guard in the first round and then come back with one of those second-round edge rushers, I think that helps. But we're going to have to sprinkle in some starting caliber players in free agency here.
Yeah, my 3-round mock for them, I agreed with the guy who said Venga Ioane in the first round. It's happening. It's done. So 14 overall Venga. Second round, R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma, just for the name, because it's just R. Mason. I forget what the reason was, but it was silly. Edge rusher presence. And then third round, Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas, linebacker.
There we go. So we've hit a couple of those needs, and I think we sprinkle in some free agent starters, perhaps at corner, another edge rusher.
Yeah.
And I would grab a left guard.
I mean, I think you need to come out of free agency, I think, with a couple of offensive line options. I think maybe they don't end up being...
Buy low on a Wyatt Teller, see if you can save him.
Cast a wide net,
right
I think, with the offensive line. Like I said, between the draft and free agency, I think you want to come out of that with maybe 6 offensive linemen being added to the roster, and we only added 1 in the first 3 rounds of the draft, so you got 5 more to find.
So, have we fixed the Ravens?
Sure.
We did it.
Big part of it is also, get Lamar Jackson back playing like an MVP and you're in business.
Yeah, that would certainly help. Declan Doyle, the new under 30-year-old offensive coordinator who comes in, it's going to be, this is his third offensive coordinator, is that right? From Greg Roman to Todd Monken, was there someone in between? But it's always fascinating when you have Lamar as a foundation, how you build that offense and the balance of leaning into his ability versus, giving them some easy buttons to press, which is always nice as an offensive coordinator. So can't wait to see how that all comes together.
Phenomenally Irish name for young Declan.
It's pretty solid. Pretty solid. All right, we ready to go?
Yep.
Ravens fixed. All right, Cincinnati Bengals up next. Defense has been in rough shape the last couple of years.
And it's only going to get better by letting their best player leave for nothing.
Well, Trey Hendrickson will hit the market. They're coming off a 6-11 season. Again, this was hurt by Joe Burrow getting injured. But the defense, historically bad through the first 10 to 12 weeks. It did get a little bit better down the stretch. They have retained Al Golden as defensive coordinator. Last year was his first year. And the Bengals have 7 picks, which they usually have. It's not all their picks, but they've got their top 4, 2 6s, and a 7. They usually have all of their draft picks, and they don't do a ton of maneuvering around the draft board.
No. The Trey Hendrickson thing is wild. Like, this is one of the most fascinating contract negotiations that's happened between a player and a team. Everybody seems to have made a balls of it.
Yeah.
Like, everybody, both sides. Remember, Trey Hendrickson had this big holdout last year, became a big thing, eventually kind of caved, and they signed him to the deal, let him go this year. As part of that deal, Hendrickson did not get a no franchise tag clause, right? So they could have tagged him again. Now, it's not as simple as they could have just tagged him and job done. Because they reworked his contract, the tag would have been a higher number. So maybe that's why they felt, maybe that's why everybody felt comfortable with that. But it was kind of wild from Hendrickson's point of view that they got basically nothing out of that holdout and line in the sand kind of thing from a year ago. And then Cincinnati capitalizes on having effectively won the stare down by letting him leave a year later for nothing. So what you could, if you were going to let him leave, you could have traded him for a lot previously.
The trade thing is tricky because he was injured, and I don't know how.
I don't mean like now,
like before, ahead of time, yeah.
Like way before. If you'd made the determination that you weren't going to get this thing done, you were going to eventually he was going to leave. Then trade him away like a year and a half ago.
No, I get it. They gave him a $14 million raise, and now he's maybe could have tried to trade him at the deadline. He was battling injury.
Right.
Could have been tricky. Could have tagged and traded him or what have you right now. But
the tag's higher. Like
the tag is higher. Right.
So it's just everybody screwed it up. And now Trey Hendrickson gets to leave.
He'll
go
walk
to a team.
And then depending, I assume he'll get paid, even if it's just for 2 or 3 years. He's in his early 30s. That's ancient on the defensive line.
That's the other thing is they've really screwed him in this because now he's 31, coming off an injury. I mean, it's just He's like what, like a year older than the Myles Garretts and T.J. Watts of the world who got like monster, market resetting type contracts. And Hendrickson's probably not getting that because he's a year older, and that's the wrong side of 30. And he's coming off an injury, and just everything associated with it is slightly more concerning. And that's probably going to tamp down his market.
As far as, I think he'll still get paid. Maybe the Bengals end up with a third-round comp pick out of it, depending on what they do in free agency. I think as far as what Cincinnati can do right now, they're in good shape offensively. They're going to return everybody on the offense. They just took care of Dalton Reisner, was the one quick question mark. Getting him really cheap to start at right guard. I mean, this happens every year where there is, like, always with Reisner, too, who's just a good, solid starting player. Maybe there's a disconnect between advanced analytics and what the league feels about him. I don't know. But always seems to do perfectly fine when he's out there. A couple teams have moved on from him. Cincinnati did a really nice job to just lock him up on the cheap, and now they return all 5 starters on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a Bengals fan, you might say, is that actually a good thing? We're returning all 5 starters. But I think it is. It's not a great offensive line, but year 2 of Dylan Fairchild playing at left guard, the continuity factor is a big deal, and you got them all back, and you don't have to worry about it. You still want to have some draft and develop type of players so you can, be okay for the future. But I think that's a good thing for Cincinnati. Of course, they've got the 2 big dogs outside, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They're in good shape as far as the offense goes. Chase Brown's back at running back, right? Mike Gesicki's back. So they're in really good shape there. And I think all you have to do offensively is add depth, draft and develop type of players. All of the work is going to the defensive side of the ball here, both in free agency where they have some money to spend and in the draft.
Yes. I still think that offensive line could use some attention and probably shouldn't be ignored. I will say, as much as the continuity is useful and there's power to that, Orlando Brown is one of the most popular cut candidates in the NFL because he's due a ton of non-guaranteed money. Generally speaking, that's just how the world works. The 2 guys ahead of him in terms of offensive tackle that were due more non-guaranteed money are Juwan Taylor, who's cut, and Titus Howard, who's already been dealt. So the only 2 guys with effectively a worse contract from a staying on the roster point of view have already been shipped off the roster. As much as the Bengals are looking at this and saying we could return the same 5, it wouldn't shock me if left tackle is actually a potential need for them.
And then where do we go at left tackle? I don't know if I don't want to break the bank for Rasheed Walker. I'm letting someone else do that. He's like the biggest left tackle free agent right now with Trent Williams. I mean, let's go get Trent Williams.
Wow. That's very not a Bengals move.
It's not a Bengals move, but we're taking over here.
Sure.
I would consider Trent Williams. There's too many defensive needs to overspend from a draft pick perspective for a Trent Williams. But yeah, I mean it's
also obviously a short-term thing.
It is. So yeah, that would raise another question at left tackle.
Yeah,
and they're picking at 10. Are there left tackle options at 10? Absolutely, but I believe.
Do you want to opt into one? Yeah, as a need.
Yeah, Cincinnati is I think hoping for it. Like if Reuben Bain falls, I'm taking him. If Caleb Downs is there, if Sonny Styles is there. Even though they spent 2 out of their 6 picks last year on linebackers, a 2 and a 6, was it, for Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight. They didn't play great last year, and they're not good enough to keep you from taking a Sonny Styles. So to me, it's best defensive player on the board at 10.
I would, if I'm running the thing, right? I would cut Orlando Brown, and I would sign Josh Jones for nothing.
You and the Josh
because this happens every year. He gets paid nothing, and I'm upgrading at left tackle. And getting cheaper.
He's not that good.
He's better.
He's not that good.
He's good at left tackle.
He's fine at left tackle. He's not.
He's good. He's good at left tackle.
Maybe hedge with a Jamari Sawyer in free agency as well as a.
Add them both, and it'll still cost a third of what it costs for Orlando Brown.
I can buy that. Cornelius Lucas, who is always my favorite swing tackle, had a rough season last year for the Browns, but.
Those are always.
If you want to bring him in as well, so swing tackle world.
The year where the swing tackle gets just too old is a rough year.
This just happened with Cornelius.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I was grinding his 24 tape. Like, yeah, man can still play.
Yeah, the 1 year
not so hot.
The 1 year where the swing tackle gets too old to play is a rough scene. I'm telling you, Josh Jones is a good left tackle. I'm plugging. If I have a left tackle problem, if I need a left tackle, and I'm not picking, somewhere where I'm obvious, like the Dallas Cowboys, like I have a left tackle problem. I pick 12. I'm just going to take a left tackle, job done. If I'm not in that world, I'm just signing Josh Jones. He's probably better than half of the crappy starters in the NFL at left tackle. Now, can he play anywhere else in the offensive line?
He's your Morgan
No.
Moses.
Yeah, except unlike Morgan Moses, who can play, I think, in every could be.
Who's good?
Josh Jones is good. Only at left tackle, but he's good. He's a good left tackle.
All right, how are we fixing this defense? The Bengals have money to play with. Despite having all this money tied up in Joe Burrow and the two receivers.
Yeah, they're going to need it.
Are they in the Odafe Owe market potentially? I wouldn't hate that. So what do they have on the defensive line? 2 former first-rounders, Myles Murphy and Shamar Stewart. Myles Murphy has been not average at best the last year plus. He's improved, but hasn't made a massive impact as a first-rounder. Shamar Stewart looked good early, got hurt, was the same up-and-down player that he was at Texas A&M, and he's still a projection. They have not had a good interior pass rush presence in a long time.
If you take Trey Hendrickson off this defensive line, their best defensive lineman might be B.J. Hill.
Yeah.
So they need everything.
And by the way, Joseph Asai, who's a good 3 and filled in admirably last year, he's a free agent as well. Yeah. So you're losing your number 1 and number 3, depending on where you want to rank Myles Murphy and Shamar Stewart.
The defense has 2 capable cornerbacks and nothing else.
That's about right.
So everything is what they need. Everything except 2 cornerbacks and a defensive line depth piece in B.J. Hill. Now, maybe Chris Jenkins, I'm not saying cut him. Chris Jenkins may take a step forward. He's at least, he can eat up some snaps, right? But I'm not holding out much hope for him being the impact player that maybe they thought he was and they're drafting him. Similarly, I'm already out on Myles Murphy at this point. Shamar Stewart heading into year 2, but we know what a gamble and risk that was as a guy who had very little college production and in year 1 had very little NFL production, albeit in an injury-marred season. So you need to throw everything at this defense.
I would be in the Odafe Owe running. So you'd replace Hendrickson money with Owe potentially.
Yikes!
What? He's not as good, but he's hitting his prime. Really athletic, good pass rusher. I know he's always cited as, he had no sacks at Penn State. Talk about it in the future, but he was productive at Penn State despite not having any sacks. He is a good pass rusher, Owe. You bring in Odafe Owe. I would say one of my favorite one-year flyer defensive tackles is Sheldon Rankins, but when you look at the last 6 years of his career, the 1 year he was in Cincinnati was the 1 year he didn't produce, so maybe that wouldn't work. So let's go Tim Settle instead. Tim Settle, add him to the defensive line rotation. Because that's the other part about what Cincinnati's done. They've been looking for a 330-pound run stopper next to B.J. Hill, and they've gone 3rd round McKinley Jackson. They've gone T.J. Slayton in free agency. Those guys haven't worked out either. They haven't had – they're not only missing pass rushers, they're missing the run stuffer in the middle of the defense as well, and they've missed on those players. That's why the defensive line is in shambles.
Here's a fix for you. Again, cut candidates, trade candidate world, the Minnesota Vikings are apparently open to moving Jonathan Grenard because of his contract number, because of where they are in terms of their cap thing. Now, Grenard is a very good player, and the Bengals have the kind of money and could theoretically flip a draft pick in that direction.
I don't want to lose one of my 6 picks.
I don't want to lose one of my picks either, but we need to replace the only good player we have on defense is leaving. We need to replace that, and I don't think Odafe Owe is cutting it.
Grenard's contract is, unless he wants it reworked, he's got 1 more year in his deal.
Which he will.
He will want it reworked, but if he doesn't, it's really cheap. You're getting him for about $18 million base, which is what Khalil Mack made last year on a 1 year, which is half of the top.
Right. No, you're going to need to re-up him.
If you don't have to re-up the 29-year-old, you're in good shape.
But you do. So
I'm not throwing a 2. What is it? A 2 and a 4 that's going to take to get Grenard? A 2?
I don't think it would take that. I think they may end up cutting him if they don't trade him away. At which point his value is not that high. I think you could get him for a mid-round draft pick. If you can get him for a mid-round draft pick, and rework it, I 100% want him and a mid-round draft pick above Odafe Owe, even though Owe is younger. And
the other cut candidates, Jesse Bates. Do you just bring him back?
Seriously. The defense fell apart when Jesse Bates left. Add him back to the defense and hope it comes back.
I've said it before. At a high level, you can say, positional value, safety, it's low, it's blah, blah, blah. And then you have this very specific situation where Cincinnati's defense has fallen apart since Jesse Bates left. Of course, there are confounding variables, but you could easily make that case in the building. Hey, if we just get the leader back there, the guy that's going to make sure everybody knows what they're doing, who's also still pretty good. Jesse Bates, it's not like he's completely dropped off as a player. He's still rangy and can force turnovers. I'd bring him back if he ends up getting cut by the Falcons.
Sure.
We're fixing this team here.
You can't. I mean, I wouldn't. What the hell? I wouldn't expect him to fix it, but there's enough. There's enough direct line between him leaving and it being garbage that I'm willing to give it a shot.
What about a cheap Jonathan Allen who just got released by the Vikings? If you could get him on the cheap and just let him rush the passer at this point in his career.
Allen and did Hargrave get cut, or is he going to get cut?
No, he's still available.
Because he might end up being a candidate as well. Like the Vikings may get basically nothing except a one-year rental out of those two guys that they threw a ton of money at.
And then at pick 10, best defensive player available. That's what we're doing.
Best defensive player available, and hope that a really good one falls.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take Downs. I'd take Styles if he's there. I'd take, if Bain is still there, I would take him first of that group. And then you say, hey, we've spent, first-round edge draft. We spent a first-rounder on an edge in 3 out of the last 4 years. I don't care. That's fine. That's where you spend It's
also pick. Just though it never made any sense to me, those arguments. Like, it doesn't matter if the guy that started that trend, if he stinks, then who cares that you spent it doesn't.
That's the fans having PTSD, being like, well, you tried this already and you failed. I don't trust you. But
sure, but
at this point, it doesn't matter.
What's the alternative? To just go, well, we're never fixing that position. I guess we just don't have any defensive ends. Like, that's not a solution. If you missed, you got Matt Millen and the Detroit Lions took all kinds of crap for just going wide receiver. But what's the alternative? Just not play with wide receivers?
If you don't get Jesse Bates, what about a Reed Blankenship?
Oh,
on the back end.
Reed Blankenship, let's go.
I do really wonder in the discussions in the Bengals building how much they're like, man, the A/B analysis of without good safeties, even though the D-line has had issues. I wonder how much they really feel like they need better safety. I know they need better safety play, but how much they're going to value that now that they have this money to spend. So.
And also just how they approach the money that they have to spend. I mean, the Bengals are a team. I don't think it's fair necessarily to say they're cheap entirely.
No, it's the way we describe the Cowboys. It's that they're not using every edge. Like they're not going to be in salary cap hell.
They behave in a unique way.
Yeah. They're not gonna go through this 3-year stretch where they keep pushing the credit card and then they're in salary cap hell with a whole bunch of dead money or people that they need to cut. They don't do that often.
No, they just
even the Orlando Brown thing when that came together a couple years ago was like
it's an opportunistic thing.
Yeah, it was like a rare aggressive move at the time.
They approach everything. They have a few weird, strange quirks that they do in terms of like how they structure contracts, what they do with guaranteed money, all that kind of thing. They just have a few strange lines in the sand that they, operate under that other people don't. So, I mean, look, they are cheap in some ways, but it's not like they just don't spend money. Like, look what they did last year when they, everyone's like, there's no way they can find a way of keeping Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and blah, blah, blah. They'll find the money if they want to do it, but there are things that they don't like doing from a contract standpoint, which does make them a unique, slightly quirky team to be dealing with.
All right, do we fix the Bengals?
I'm trying to find, who do I want in the third round for the Bengals? I'm trying to avoid picking all the same players every time.
No, understood. Trevor just put it out there that he's going to revamp the MDS big board as well, which will all the good players you're getting in the second and third
will be different.
Not available there.
Still need that thing of being able to use the consensus board. I'm working on an alternative.
It might be. Well, right now I see it as the PFF board.
Yes. Okay, 3-round mock for them. Number 10 overall, we got Caleb Downs. He slid our direction. We're happy with that.
Yep.
Even if Mike Mayock thinks he's not a top 10 player necessarily. Everyone agrees he's a good player, and they need a good player.
Yep.
Second round, Zion Young. That's been a popular one.
I like that.
Missouri edge rusher. And then third round, Keyshawn Elliott, the Arizona State linebacker, which the mock draft sim hated.
Trevor doesn't like him. There we go. Fixed the Bengals. Get the Browns up next. Is that right? Where's my list? Next up, Cleveland Browns. Fixing the Browns. Only 5 minutes behind schedule here. What are we doing?
It's like Coughlin time. We're like 10 minutes ahead by our standards.
What are we doing with the Cleveland Browns?
Well, okay. Let's start with quarterback. You run the Cleveland Browns. You are now Andrew Berry. Who is your starting quarterback for 2026?
Man, I might just be rolling with Shedeur Sanders.
What are you doing with Deshaun Watson?
What am I legally allowed to do?
Well, he's about to come back into the building and be like, great news, Andrew. I'm healthy. To which your response is?
I think you hired the same sniper that popped his Achilles. Like somebody sniped the Achilles a couple years ago.
Twice.
Yeah.
Was it ever confirmed that he
Can
did
we
the
just,
second one
to
like
be clear,
dancing at a wedding or something?
Completely joking before people take this.
Oh no, it's clipped up. It's on
what happened
media.
when he tore his Achilles a
Steve
couple years ago?
Palazzolo calls for violence.
We were joking about, did the Browns call for this to get out of his deal? Nancy Kerrigan, the leg.
Kerrigan.
It's a joke.
You're going to Tanya Harding it.
Tanya Harding it, really. It's a joke. I'm just joking. We're not really doing that. It's not real.
Would be. Can you imagine? I mean, in all this world of like everything you think, there's a line, a line of where normality stops and then suddenly everything's crazy now, right? This is the modern world. I mean, if you found out that an NFL GM, I'm going to keep him nameless for this point, lest we get into legal trouble, but a nameless NFL GM had actually called in a Tanya Harding style hit on their quarterback with his giant, collect on his insurance to get his contract off the roster, just to avoid the problem of having a giant bloated quarterback contract who's failed on your roster. What a story that would be.
Look, the best case scenario a couple years ago was that he at least plays well. If you're going to invest, obviously, I mean, if you invest that much. The problem is as much the off-field questions that he came with as just.
But that's
awful.
The one
the
thing.
Offense was noticeably worse with Deshaun
That's
Watson
the problem.
versus Joe Flacco, Jameis Winston. Name the quarterback that replaced Deshaun Watson, and other than DTR,
yes,
they were better than him.
So that's the thing.
A problem.
Like, look, I think personally, there's a fairly healthy chance that Deshaun Watson is, what was the term we used yesterday? A horrendous individual. I think there's a pretty healthy chance that just on a personal level, Deshaun Watson is a truly horrendous human being. But they don't care about that. I mean, if they did, they wouldn't have opted into him in the first place. So that part is kind of irrelevant. The off-field baggage is totally besides the point. I think from their perspective, it's that he's 31, coming off back-to-back Achilles tears, and when he was running the offense, which, to be fair, is now different. Stefanski's gone. It's a different offense. But when he was running the offense, it was literally the worst Browns offense of all time. The worst Browns offense of all time. Like, the Browns have a lot of bad offenses. That jersey with the 58 names on it, almost all of those guys stink. And Deshaun Watson was at the helm of the worst offense that they had, right? So that's the bigger problem, is that you're stuck with this guy whose contract is still on the roster. And the last time you saw him play football, he was worse than anybody else you put out there.
Right.
So that's the issue, is if he walks back in the building, it's like, great news, boss, I'm healthy now. It's like, yeah, but you stink.
All right. Honestly, I don't think Watson's going to play quarterback.
I honestly think he might start is the problem.
I don't know if that's really true. So I wouldn't do it.
So you're carrying his contract and saying, Deshaun, just sit in the hot tub all year.
This is the tricky part in this whole deal. There's not a lot of good QB options.
Because you're kind of stuck with him, right? Like the contract is still prohibitive. You can't really get rid of him. He's there.
No, I get it.
So the only question becomes, are you playing him, starting him, or are you hoping that you can keep him as a backup / third string hot tub guy who just doesn't cause problems?
I mean, you just have to stash him at the moment, and that's it.
Okay.
I don't think you want him playing.
So you're starting Shedeur.
I guess, does Todd Monken believe he could fix him? Like, I'd have that honest conversation.
Watson?
Yeah. Like, I'd have that honest conversation. Because it's still like, what's in your best interest as an organization? It'd still be for Watson to be good.
I think
it's just I've lost faith in that.
Yeah, I have no faith in that.
Like just to go back through the timeline, he was awesome in 2020, gets suspended, misses 21, misses 12 games in 22, comes back. We knew that he had played 4 years of really good football, so we're like, he's a little rusty, whatever. Maybe it's just not all there. And then anytime he played in 23 or 24, it was bad. And 24 in particular was the year, right? 24, where he was awful. It was historically bad Browns offense. And then Jameis Winston made it better. In 23, Flacco made it better, and they made it to the playoffs. And in 24, Jameis made it better. And so that's the problem. Last year, Browns offense was awful across the board, whether it was Flacco, whether it was Shedeur, whether it was Dylan Gabriel, didn't matter. And if you would put Watson in that situation, it probably would have been awful. And it's harder to say. It's easy to say, well, the offensive line was bad. They had nobody to throw to. The whole thing was bad. But the problem is every time you replaced Deshaun Watson in 23 and 24, it got better with journeyman Joe Flacco and journeyman Jameis Winston. So how do you have any faith that he could roll into 2026 in 6 years removed from his best season? Deshaun Watson's all of a sudden going to be better.
Yeah, you can. I mean, the one area of, if you wanted to construct an argument that there's still hope for Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, it would be, obviously, it was a bad stylistic fit between Deshaun Watson and Kevin Stefanski. And then I think they both lost themselves in the tall grass trying to find a solution that worked, right? Like Stefanski changed his offense to try and make it work with Deshaun Watson. That just seemed to make it even worse, and it just spiraled, right? So if you were trying to construct an argument that said it might still work, you would say, look, it was a bad matchup the last time, and then they both just sank into quicksand trying to figure out a way of making it function. Now it's a completely blank slate, wiped clean. Monken's coming in with a totally different offense. Maybe it's a better stylistic fit to begin with, and even if it isn't, maybe Monken is better suited to be able to craft something that actually does work for him. So I don't have a ton of faith in that making that much sense, but it genuinely wouldn't shock me. I mean, he's still the most talented quarterback on that roster.
Yeah, I mean, he's done it before.
Albeit 31 coming off back-to-back Achilles tears.
He's done it before. It was 6 years ago. And they signed this fully guaranteed deal that they've kept pushing it. His cap number is officially $80 million.
Right.
And the dead money is $131 million if they cut him.
And so because of this problem, right, you've got we've just outlined the problem, which is they've got this giant contract on the roster and they still might not have a quarterback because their options are the Deshaun Watson coming off back-to-back Achilles tears, who was garbage when he was in there, and the alternative is Shedeur Sanders / Dylan Gabriel, who are second-year players who didn't show a ton in their first year. And then the bigger problem is, because of the first problem, because of the Deshaun Watson contract still being the worst contract in the NFL, this team has an entire offensive line minus one spot now with Titus Howard. Hitting free agency. And then the receiver core is not good either. So all the things that are supposed to support the quarterback, whoever he is, are bad. And you don't have a ton of money to play with because $80 million of your cap is taken up with Deshaun Watson.
And that's why I thought last year, look, it still doesn't feel great, but last year's move to trade out of 2, get the extra first rounder this year, so give up the Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter option to take Mason Graham, get the extra first rounder, extra second rounder, ends up being, it's a really good move by Cleveland. It was the right move to start getting younger. And so that's the answer here for the Browns, right? We're going to continue to get younger. We've got the 2 draft picks. I think both of those picks, maybe they both go to offensive linemen. Could be a tackle and a guard. Maybe it's a tackle and a wide receiver. I think that probably ends up pretty solid if you go tackle receiver with your 2 first rounders. You have to start building this offense back up through the draft, particularly with both of those first rounders.
The Browns are the team that got screwed harder than anybody else by the way the college quarterback landscape unfolded last year. This time a year ago, the Browns would have been looking to the future and being like, man, look what next year's got in store for us in terms of the quarterback market. We don't love the quarterbacks in this draft. Evidently, they didn't love Shedeur Sanders. They passed on the quarterbacks all the way down to the third round with Dylan Gabriel and then the 5th round with Shedeur. But next year, look at the list of QBs that's going to be available, right? And none of them were available now. It ended up being Mendoza and then maybe later on down the draft, Ty Simpson. So they got screwed badly by the way that quarterback market unfolded.
So what are we doing here, man?
Well, so what's our offensive line?
Okay, so right now you've got Titus Howard at right tackle.
Yeah.
Down the stretch, Luke Whippler played a few games at center. Still don't know if I want to roll into the season with him. He's in, year 3? Just doesn't have a ton of power. He's probably fine in pass protection, but if he had to play, I think you could do it. DeJuan Jones is coming off of injury, but he's 360 pounds with an injury history, and you moved him from right tackle to left tackle, and it just hasn't been great.
And now people are talking about him as a guard, which is usually it's like we're just.
Well, the funny thing is, I thought he was better in
with this guy.
pass pro coming out with that size, right?
He still is.
That's the sad thing about because of the overinvestment in Watson is this team that just 3 or 4 years ago had excellent depth, one of the most consistent offensive lines, and not only were they consistent, they had great continuity on the O-line. They had this. Everybody was under 2-year, 3-year deals, and they were good. And now none of them are around, and they aged out with no replacements. Right, DeJuan Jones could have been a replacement. I thought that was good at the time, but they don't have any replacements.
It was a pretty bad injury as well. Like he tore a knee ligament and this hamstring off the bone. I think look, I've had hamstring injuries, but every time I've heard of a guy tearing a hamstring clean off the bone, it's always been pretty bad.
So do you bring a Tevin Jenkins back? All the guys that I like, they seem to have released too. Him and Cornelius Lucas, and maybe they've lost it. Do you bring in a Jamari Sawyer on the cheap? You just have to go this second wave of cheaper free agent offensive linemen, get them going, get them as the projected starters, and then draft and continue to draft O-line and get that thing back on track.
We said before that the Eagles, I think, are the team in the NFL with by far the worst salary cap situation in the game, in that they don't have any flexibility, basically, to do anything. The Browns might be next because they don't have much money. They can free up some, but it's the Deshaun Watson contract is still crippling them. So they're not going to be big players in free agency. They're going to be bargain basement shopping, at which point it's like, who are your favorite bargain basement offensive linemen? Again, you just got to throw some bodies at it.
So that's where I'm going with that. You've got 4 picks in the top 70, 2 first-rounders.
Right, that's your good thing.
I think I like tackle at 6. It could be a good tackle at 24. See how the board falls. But I think if you come away with a tackle and a receiver, could be Denzel Boston at the back end of the first, could be Casey Concepcion, but come away with a playmaker and a starting tackle. Now, and I didn't hate the Titus Howard move. You give up a 5th for a starting lineman, and you got to pay him a little bit, but a league average starting lineman in Howard, he's fine, given what you had. So
yeah, I think that's a perfect good move. Yeah, no problem with that whatsoever.
But here's the deal. If Monken can fix Watson or thinks he can, give him a shot, fine. I'm still probably going to let Shedeur and Dylan Gabriel just battle it out and see what happens. Because I'm not going to pay Malik Willis. You just can't. I got to draft somebody in 27. Yeah. Drafting somebody next year.
Would you take?
You get one more year of Shedeur, who people thought were a first rounder, including us. Dylan Gabriel, who we thought was a good developmental quarterback. Both looked kind of bad last year. Shedeur probably a little bit better than the numbers, but still not great. And just let him go.
Would you try and take one of the 2 first-round picks you have this year and try and get into next year again? Like, if somebody's willing to offer you something for 6, would you just get out of that and try and turn 6 this year into a first next year and do it again?
If I'm the GM and I'm just doing what's best for the Browns. If you're Andrew Berry and you feel like, okay, I got to show signs of life this year, which I don't know how they're going to.
Right.
By the way, the defense is incredible. And you lose Jim Schwartz, maybe it takes a bit of a hit. But the D-line's great. Myles Garrett's still great. The defense was awesome last year and very much intact this year.
That's going to be a big variable, though, what this defense looks like minus Jim Schwartz. Because it was really good, as you said, but it was also one of the most extreme defenses in the NFL in terms of style.
Yeah.
Like it has...
man rush, a little bit more man coverage.
Yeah, they were one of the most identifiable defenses in the NFL in terms of this is what this team does week in, week out. Now they're going to be presumably doing different things.
I would be fine with pushing to next year. The Jets do have, I misspoke the other day, they do have the 3 first-rounders already next year. I was losing track. I would love to see the Jets get 4. I think you try to battle. Look, it doesn't mean, I don't know if there's 5 first-rounders next year, but it's probably a better first-round QB class next year than this year. I would have no problem continuing to multiply your first rounders and get into next season. That's why they're in this position they are now, because they did that last year.
Yeah.
I think that was
smart. I don't know. That's the thing. I think their process last year was actually pretty sound. I think they got very unlucky with how things turned out, and in particular this year, the fact that they had the number 6 and the number 24 overall pick, and even the 24 one. That's unlucky, right? Like when they made that trade, I don't think they would have been expecting the Jags to be as good as they were this year. So the fact that pick ends up as low down the first round as it is unlucky in and of itself. But the fact that they have 6 and 24 this year, that's the ammunition to go get a quarterback. Only it turns out there isn't one to go get. You're like, obviously, assuming you're not getting up to number 1, the Raiders are moving off that. You would have assumed this time a year ago that there would be another quarterback somewhere in the top 10 to go get, and there isn't this year.
I know.
Like that's just unlucky, and sometimes that's going to happen. And
you hope you're not unlucky next year.
That's the thing. So the problem is, do you do it again and try and get the quarterback in 2027? But as you said, like how many times can you do that before ownership just goes, you know what, this is ridiculous. What are we doing here? Yeah. And the Andrew Berry, like the line of you're a really good GM other than the worst person out moving NFL history. At some point, he's got to run out of rope, and they just go, there's only so many times you can say this is good process, so the results just stink. Before you're like, but what if what if it's actually not good process, and that's why the results stink? Anyway, I ran through a 3-round mock draft. Francis Maui-Noah at number 6. That's a pretty common one.
Yeah,
that works. 24, I got Omar Cooper Jr., the wide receiver.
I love it.
That's where I'm going with my wide receiver at 24.
Fill in the rest of the O-line with O-line cut candidates like Elgin Jenkins and
39. This is a classic. This will never happen. And I haven't seen it happen, but it happened, so I did it. Caleb Lomu fell to number 39 in this draft.
Wow.
I'm like, hell yeah. I'm going to take Caleb Lomu at that point. We'll plug him in at guard. We'll plug him in at center. Who the hell cares? I want him. He's a good lineman. And then number 70, I got Kamari Ramsey, the safety from USC. So
nice.
First 3 picks. Forget the third rounder for a moment. We got 2 starting offensive linemen and Omar Cooper Jr. Sign me up.
It's a great draft. Sprinkle in the rest of the veteran offensive linemen.
And to be clear, I don't think Caleb Lomu will be available at pick number 39.
It was today.
But as we know, every single year, weird things happen in the draft. And look at every second round. Every year, you're going to find some people that everyone thought were cast iron first-round picks.
And last year, they drafted extremely well.
Yes.
You can't most valuable draft in the NFL last year, per my numbers.
Right. Albeit at positions generally of lower value.
Yeah. They got linebacker, running back, the whole deal. But they drafted well. Mason Graham. Going to have to do that again. So just make sure you draft well. Mm-hmm. You're back on track. All right, Browns, fixed. Wrapping up the AFC North. Pittsburgh Steelers. Whole new world in Pittsburgh. Mike McCarthy taking over as head coach. No more Mike Tomlin for the first time in a long, long time. What are the Steelers going to do? Big question at quarterback again. Aaron Rodgers, free agent, not necessarily in talks.
No,
with anyone, just free
chilling.
Agent, like we all are,
keeping himself in shape.
We're all just free agents,
waiting for the calls.
But coming off a 10-7 season, because that's what they do. Got some money to spend. Have a lot of draft picks. So when the Steelers were wheeling and dealing last year, remember after the draft, they traded George Pickens for the 3rd-round pick. So they have 3 third-rounders. First and second rounders. They have a lot of draft capital, and it felt like last year was a slightly go-for-it season for Rodgers, but not to the detriment of the future, right? They were trying to win with Rodgers. They go 10-7, but here they are sitting with money to spend and a ton of draft picks.
Indeed.
It's a whole new world in Pittsburgh, so how are we fixing them?
Unfortunately, though, no answer at quarterback yet, which is the problem with a few of these teams. So that's the first question is, what is our solution?
So what are our options?
Malik Willis.
We thought Malik Willis was maybe locked into Arizona, given some of the connections there and their need.
The Steelers are a team. I mean, there's a few teams out there that have the need a quarterback and the money to play in the market if Malik Willis's number starts to get pretty high. Arizona's definitely one of them, but so is Pittsburgh.
Because Kyler Murray is basically free.
Yep.
Financially.
You want to do it again?
I'm tempted by it. He's a better version of, again, just to remind people, the Steelers did a unique thing with the QB room a couple years ago. They had Russell Wilson on the bare minimum. They had Justin Fields for almost nothing. They had the lowest investment in the quarterback room in the NFL by a wide margin, other than maybe the Niners, who had Brock Purdy, as a 7th rounder. Could the Steelers do that again? Now the Steelers are in this bad luck territory again, where every single time they're always picking at 20 or 21, and they're always on the outside looking in of quarterbacks. And in the years that they desperately need a quarterback, there's one first rounder or two first rounders, and that's it. You could argue they could have just drafted Jackson Dart last year, and things would have been fine. Maybe they missed that opportunity, but there's no clear answers here. The Kyler thing, for a team that's close, I think Kyler makes a lot of sense. Forget style for a minute. He makes a lot of sense for teams like the Steelers and teams like the Vikings, who already have a pretty good foundation. Talked to Matt Collar a lot on his show yesterday about Kyler and the fit for Minnesota, and we'll talk about that in an hour. But is he the fit here for Pittsburgh? You get him so cheap, and then you push all your other resources, all this draft capital, all the finances, all the money into building the rest of the roster. And Kyler's better than Russ was already on the downswing of his career. Kyler has not played great the last 2 years, but we've seen what the high end was, and he's still young. Would you do that?
Yeah, look, because he's basically free, veteran minimum, for all intents and purposes, any team bringing him in is having Arizona pay for their quarterback this year. It's a bargain regardless of how he plays, really. And then the question is just how likely is this to work out long term? Or do you even care if you're going to get average, albeit volatile play out of Kyler Murray for a year? And that's got some value on its own because you can then funnel the money that you're saving on a quarterback somewhere else. Just not, I don't know what the average is in terms of what you're paying a quarterback room in the NFL, but it's got to be like $30+ million. Instead, they're paying $5 for their entire quarterback room. That's an edge. It just is, right? Almost no matter how Kyler Murray plays. He's not going to play like the worst quarterback in the NFL. So for you getting any form of average play out of a $5 million quarterback room is an edge relative to most other teams.
Yeah, and look, we spend a lot of our team building discussions around winning a championship. Obviously, that's the ultimate goal. I don't know if Kyler Murray's winning a Super Bowl this year with the Steelers, but if the goal is,
we don't know that about any of the other options either.
Right, so. And we don't know. Are the Steelers, even though Tomlin's gone, are they still content being a 9 or 10 win team? Kyler might be your best path to a 9 or 10 win team, but he's not the best path to a longer term approach where you find the next Big Ben, you find your next quarterback.
Right. The only advantage Malik Willis brings over Kyler Murray is he's younger, and the most recent stuff we've seen from him has been very good, albeit on an incredibly small sample size. Kyler Murray probably has higher end play on his resume than Malik Willis does, and much more of it. But the most recent stuff you've seen has been worse, and he's injured more, and he's older.
The other option is you roll with Will Howard. And reports that Pittsburgh loved Will Howard. Loved him enough to take him in the 6th round last year, but they loved him. Or maybe they loved him after they got him in the building.
Love him as much as you can love a 6th round draft pick.
Look, I don't hate that as an option either. I feel like this.
You can't go from. You don't bring in.
It depends on what the goal is, right? I mean, look, if this is a reset year for Pittsburgh, if they're willing to take a reset year, I just don't know if they are.
You're not bringing in Mike McCarthy to then start Will Howard. Mike McCarthy his job is to avoid a drop-off in overall record and performance from the Mike Tomlin consistency of we never have losing seasons in Pittsburgh. The only thing Mike McCarthy is doing this year is ensure we don't lose more than we win. That's your role. You don't do that.
You think they hired Mike McCarthy just to keep doing what Tomlin's doing?
100%. Mike McCarthy is a hire to avoid a drop-off. It's not a hire to take a step to the next level.
It's a lateral move.
Yeah, it's a lateral. It's literally it's almost an admission of, look, Mike's actually doing a great job here, but we all it's gone stale. Something needs to change. We've just reached the point.
Another Mike.
Critical mass of criticism on the outside. Something's got to happen. And that's why I think he was the guy that made the decision, allegedly. It's the, Mike's decided to step aside as opposed to, hey, Mike, we got to fire you now. I think it's the whole thing's like an admission that was the dynamic at play, at which point he's there just to avoid a drop-off. We've acknowledged that actually Mike Tomlin does some pretty good things here. There's something to this record of never losing. Mike McCarthy's a good coach. He's won a Super Bowl. We bring him in, therefore we're not going to suck.
Oh, boy.
You don't know you're not going to suck if Will Howard's your starting quarterback for 17 games.
So who's getting Kyler in this world? Because I was getting him to Minnesota.
You were.
But I'm talking about it for Pittsburgh.
I think it makes sense for them. I mean, look, it makes sense for anybody with a quarterback need who again, just wants to avoid. Let's just not stink. You know? You're not going to stink if Kyler's your quarterback. You might not win a Super Bowl. You might not be great, but you're not going to stink. Plus, as you said, you can then take that saving cash-wise and throw it elsewhere. The other interesting thing is always, it was similar with Russell Wilson, albeit for slightly different reasons. Russ being paired with Arthur Smith was an interesting combination. Didn't work particularly well. Kyler being paired with any offensive coach, Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, is always an interesting thing because of the unique way he's going to have to play the game. Can you even name the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator?
Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, but actually their offensive coordinator. Without looking at a hard copy list of names that has him on it.
Oh, Brian.
Yeah. Would you like to hear Brian's resume?
Angelicio.
Sure. I'm glad you attempted that rather than me. It sounds Italian, right? You must. Yeah. For your people must know.
Slinging pizzas like that wrestler guy that was going viral.
Would you like to know his resume?
Sure. This is, you're derailing the entire thing.
Doesn't matter.
This is not helpful. We're not fixing the Steelers now.
He began his career.
I don't actually.
At the Brockport Golden Eagles football program, where he was a secondary coach. Then he went to Ithaca, where he did everything. Then he went to Pitt. I assume that's Pitt, where he was. This is where his story really gets some meat on the bone. He was an offensive assistant and then tight ends coach. Offensive assistant and tight ends coach, and then the tight ends coach. Then he was the tight ends coach at Rutgers. Then he was the tight ends coach at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then he was the tight ends coach at the Cleveland Browns. Then he was the tight ends coach at the Green Bay Packers. Then he was the tight ends coach at the Washington Redskins. Then he was the tight ends coach at the Carolina Panthers. Then he was the tight ends coach and the passing game coordinator at the Minnesota Vikings. And now he's the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Nailed it.
I've just been like, this guy's a lifelong tight ends coach. Let's give him a shot at OC.
So McCarthy's calling plays?
Yeah. So McCarthy's just found a guy that apparently he really liked as a lifelong tight ends coach and be like, I'm going to be running the offense, so it doesn't really matter. Let's install him as OC.
All right. How are we fixing the Steelers, Sam?
Give him Kyler.
We giving the Vikings Kyler too, or are we giving them Derek Carr coming out of retirement?
I mean, that sounded like it was happening, so let's do that.
Okay, we'll do that later.
Although Kyler, if we're the coaches, are we doing that anyway?
I would
give him Kyler.
Okay, we're signing Kyler
for nothing. So we now have a lot of money.
We have DK Metcalf and a massive question mark at wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
We have Broderick Jones at left tackle heading into year 3 now. Is it 3 or 4? Hasn't been great.
No.
And his replacement was actually better than him, Dylan Cook.
Yes.
Last year, I might give Dylan Cook a chance.
I'm not starting Broderick
to
Jones
start
again.
Left guard's a question with Sayamalu out and hitting free agency. So we need one of those cheap free agent left guards.
Mm-hmm.
And then defense is solid, but they could always use the youth infusion, particularly on the back end. I think the secondary.
Corner in particular, I think is a need.
Need some youth.
Yeah.
But I forgot about Dylan Cook for a minute, but I was thinking about Braxton Jones to come in and bring competition, but maybe Cook handles that. What are we doing at wide receiver 2? That's the first
shopping
big question.
We're going shopping with the money we saved from Kyler.
We could also, I mean, is that a Romeo Doubs?
Sure.
Type of spot to complement DK Metcalf?
I'd be into the Romeo Doubs thing. I feel like Romeo Doubs would be a good fit there. I feel like Juwan Jennings is just a Pittsburgh type of receiver. You can imagine him getting dirty in the NFC or the AFC North.
Him and DK would be a great 1-2 punch there.
Which one is the official black and blue division? Is it this one or
It's the 2 Centrals.
Yeah.
AFC and NFC Central.
Anyway, I feel like Juwan Jennings is like made for getting, blocking hard, causing fights in the AFC North.
For sure. So get Jennings. I like that. Get Jennings to complement DK. Kyler's throwing to him. Give me a left guard, and we'll go into the draft and just keep drafting the best players. And by the way, if there's another receiver, like if Jordan Tyson falls or if there's some receiver options there at 21.
And we've been, up until now, we've been kind of assuming that Alec Pierce was actually not going to hit the market, but I think it looks like he is now. So all of a sudden, Alec Pierce is actually a viable option for teams that need wide receiver help.
Deep threats and DK and Pierce.
Yeah. Let's
Pierce
get
is going to every other
specific.
Team. Brady Christensen, you've mentioned a few times, could be a nice guard option here to fill that spot. Don't think we need look, if you believe in Dylan Cook as a competition for Broderick Jones, do that. If not, maybe a Braxton Jones comes in. Braxton and Broderick Jones battling.
The Joneses.
For the left tackle spot.
This is the spot everybody's upset by.
And then do we want to go free agent corner to pair with Joey Porter Jr.?
I think you might swing at both, free agency and the draft, depending on how it falls.
Like, we could fill a couple of these spots. I mean, James Pierre has played pretty well for the Steelers, but he's hitting free agency here. Jamel Dean, maybe? Are we getting too old?
Getting too old. They also
if we do that,
I don't know. They might need a running back as well. I know they drafted Caleb Johnson. He was in the doghouse most of last year. You've still got Jalen Warren. You know, at some point, you might be looking for a potential, let's go to a cheaper next contract guy.
What does Mike McCarthy want at running back?
Mike McCarthy want?
He had, did he have Rico? He had Rico Dowdle in Dallas. Bring in Rico to go with Jalen Warren. Are they too redundant? Maybe. So we got some options for Pittsburgh here.
What are we doing with their draft picks? Let me see.
Are you making some picks here?
I'm making some picks. So, Vamp. Well, because they got a lot.
So we got, again, a first, a second, 3 3s, 2 4s, a 5, 2 6s, and 2 7s.
This might
plethora. It is a massive season for the Steelers to get back on track here.
This might be a product of just my current, the shallowness of my current draft knowledge, but every time I get to the third round for any of these teams, I'm like, I don't want any of these people.
Don't admit that to anyone.
I'm just saying, I don't love the third round. Now, other than the occasional player that's always available in the third round is the obvious choice. Like, once I get by those guys, I'm like, I don't really want to draft any of these people.
What are we doing here?
All right, they're another one that I'm going to do that with. God, there's too many picks in the third round.
Oh, they have 3 third-rounders.
Yeah.
It's a big draft for them, man.
All right, here we go.
There's no chance we're bringing Rodgers back, by the way, right?
No. I'm not doing that.
Not our Steelers.
No, not our Steelers. In the first round, I went with Avion Terrell, the younger brother of AJ, Clemson cornerback.
I like that.
In the second round, I went with Eli Stowers, the Vanderbilt tight end, who Renner thinks is a wide receiver, and we're going to convert to wide receiver.
Pass catcher, man.
Exactly. Pass catcher. We're going to move him to wide receiver. He's going to be our big slot. Big slot, Eli Stowers. Third round, I went, what the hell? Garrett Nussmeier.
Nice.
Also, third round, Sam Hecht, the Kansas State center. And also in the third round, Malachi Fields in his 4.6 140.
If he's available there, yeah. I like that. Now we're getting real black and blue. If we brought in Juwan Jennings and we have Malachi Fields and Eli Stowers.
Yes.
It's like the 07 Jags. All 6'4" or higher. Love it. Some options for the Steelers.
Or that Chargers team where everyone was 6'5".
Right. Monster receivers.
Legadou Nene.
It's a fascinating time, I think, for the Steelers with McCarthy coming in. All of the trends around Tomlin, are they out the door? Are they consistent with the organization? And what do they do at quarterback? It's not an easy spot to be in because they're still spinning their wheels. Either way, I think you continue to take shots on backups. Last year, Will Howard. Who knows? Maybe Will Howard is good.
Sure.
They could roll with him. But
there was some stuff to like about him.
Of course. Yeah, and I thought he improved down the stretch at Ohio State and led them to a national title. There's a lot to like, just not enough to say absolutely
no,
you're the guy right now. But if they did, they're another team. If they would flip a ton of those draft picks into next year to position themselves in this theoretical better quarterback class, I wouldn't hate that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Steelers, fixed.
Done.
All right, we're halfway through. Ever want to go to the NBA Finals? Well, now's your chance, courtesy of FanDuel. All you have to do is use your profit boost on an NBA future, and you'll be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. NBA Futures lets you lock in your pick for who you think will go all the way, whether it's a team to win the championship or a conference title. Visit FanDuel.com/33rd to get started. Play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. No purchase necessary. Limit one entry for Profit Boost token. Opt-in required. Must apply. Profit Boost token on select market. Restrictions apply. See full terms, including methods of entry at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Quick break to talk about our friends at Root Insurance as well. Root Insurance believes that good drivers deserve better rates, so they've created a new kind of car insurance that rewards good drivers in an easy-to-use app. Traditional car insurance companies focus on demographics like age, zip code, occupation, and credit score to price your coverage. When Root offers a rate, your behavior behind the wheel gets more weight than any other single factor. They didn't use occupation or education level to negatively affect your rate. While you drive, Root gathers and analyzes data from your smartphone sensors, and after a few weeks, you'll get a car insurance quote based primarily on your driving. Save up to 44% off your initial Root quote after you take the test drive. If you need a tow truck, jump start, or you lock your keys in the car, Root will cover the help you need to get back on the road when you opt into roadside assistance. The Root app makes it easy to edit your coverage, update your policy, or file a claim in just 3 minutes. You can get started today at Root.com. All right, man, going to the NFC North.
The Norths.
Starting with the Chicago Bears. Coming off a great season.
Yeah.
Year 1 of Ben Johnson. Year 2 of Caleb Williams. They lose in the divisional round to the Los Angeles Rams. But optimism for the Bears. Getting things back on track. Also the favorites at the moment to land Max Crosby, potentially.
Really?
They are the favorites.
I guess that makes sense.
They have their usual allotment of picks, a couple other picks in there. But a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2
Just a
sevens.
sixth is now a seventh.
What's that?
A sixth is now a seventh.
Sixth is a seventh, right. Safeties, a lot of the secondary free agents, Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard, Nashawn Wright coming off of his breakout season, and DJ Moore posting on Instagram like a little seemingly
Cryptic tweets
that he's probably
Instagram posts
gone in Chicago.
Yeah.
On InstaFace. So expecting a little bit of turnover there. What are we doing with the Bears? Pretty good spot coming off of last year.
Yeah, very good spot. All of a sudden, you've got the hole at center now with Drew Dolman.
That's the
retiring.
Other piece of news that is
surprisingly
necessary.
Surprisingly to all involved, I think. I don't think the Bears were anticipating this either.
Last year at this time, they were. Look, the Bears have been off-season winners in a lot of off-seasons. Last year, it really worked because they attacked the offensive and defensive line in free agency. I thought the offensive line piece worked. Defensive line was a little bit more hit or miss with Grady Jarrett and Dayo Odeyingbo and some of the deals that they made for those guys. But they were very aggressive with the first contract quarterback, Caleb Williams.
Indeed. So how hard do they go at trying to fix that center hole that just opened up? Like, are they suddenly in the Tyler Linderbaum market?
I would not if I'm the Bears. I think there's too many other things that you need, and
they don't have a ton of cap space.
Yeah, I mean they've got
the capacity to free up some room. They're in it. They're not swimming in cap space.
Yeah, they're another team like.
It's not as bad as the number looks, but
yeah, like they're another team where they could easily regress. Like I think we mentioned this. I talked about this with Caller on his show. They're the team that the numbers are going to say regression candidate, but there's also a chance that like Ben Johnson is just the dude as head coach, and Caleb Williams takes a big step forward.
Yeah,
because Caleb Williams, he was good, left a lot of meat on the bone. There's a chance he just takes a massive step forward, and they're just there. Like they're extremely competitive every single year, even if the rest of the roster. Has some questions. They also have a sneaky question at left tackle as well. Braxton Jones hits free agency. They've got Canada there. And Ozzie Trapillo, who was filling in that spot, got hurt late in the season. So they have to, there's a short-term question at left tackle.
Yeah, what's his injury? Don't they just like Trapillo?
Yeah, I don't know, but he got hurt right before the playoffs or in the playoffs.
Right, but what did he go ahead with?
Leg. What you got, Hagel?
Questionable leg. Latest injury on Bears
ruptured
left tackle,
patellar.
Ozzie Trapillo.
Patellar tendon.
Isn't good news.
Yeah.
It's the most recent injury thing I've seen from a week ago. Bears catch tough break with injury update on critical starter. So, yeah, that doesn't sound great.
No.
You know what that means?
What?
Josh Jones time, baby.
Oh, jeez.
Short-term solution at left tackle. Ozzie can take his time.
Theo Benedet, I don't know if he's the long-term or even the short-term at left tackle, but he would be an option. So, what are we doing here? DJ Moore's. So if DJ Moore's out, Roma Dunze, Luther Burden as a 1-2, you could add a nice third option, but it's not the most pressing thing in the world. You got the 2 tight ends in Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland. The rest of the offensive line, Joe Tooney at left guard. You've got the question at center. Now, I don't think you break the bank for a Linderbaum. You go with that second wave of Posick or what do we say?
Yeah,
Posick. Right. Or Tyler Biadasz. By the way, like Biadasz, I don't know if he's bowling retirement or whatever, but I mean he's a fine center that I would enter. I'd look. All of these teams should be looking at it. The Lions need a center. The Bears need a center. Do the Packers need a center? Like everybody needs a center. Vikings need a center. So all of them should look at Biadasz.
According to Ryan Poles at the Combine, he said Trapillo is going to miss most of the year.
So that's.
But they expect him to be back and be himself when he eventually does come back. But yeah, this is a team that basically needs a left tackle as well.
Yeah, so I don't know if like their first rounder ends up being a left tackle candidate. Do they want to go? He
said they're exploring all options, whether it's free agency internally or the draft. So anything's on the table.
Hagel is saying they've entertained the Linderbaum at center.
Yeah, I think that's probably about as far as it would go. They kick it around, feel, see what the numbers are, and then once they see the market, it's like, yeah, well, let somebody else go there.
So for a team that was so good, there was still question. Like run defense was a question. They could still use that big-bodied nose tackle in the run game, which is why they've been getting Caden McDonald in mock drafts quite a bit, Ohio State defensive tackle. The pass rush also wasn't great. You got Montez Sweat. You have Austin Booker maybe developing a little bit. He could beat up on some bad tackles, but you'd love to have a more dependable option there. Odiingbo, I've never been a huge fan of Odiingbo. I think he's all right, and not for $16 million a year. And Grady Jarrett's getting older. Like they need some disruption up front on the defensive line. And then you look at starting spot at linebacker, and as I mentioned, the secondary. They need 2 safeties and maybe some depth at corner. So there's a lot of needs for the Bears.
Yeah, there are. I was just looking around trying to find anybody other than Josh Jones that I would want to start for like a year or half a year.
Braxton Jones. They hated Braxton Jones.
They really did. Hated the man.
Like I don't want Vidarian Lowe.
That's what I mean. Like it's not.
Vidarian Lowe could be a backup.
There's a bunch of guys that are out there.
Josh Nijman can be a backup.
Yeah.
Cornelius Lucas can be your swing tackle. Maybe.
I mean, maybe if the Bengals cut Orlando Brown, you could make something happen there. But
that's not a bad idea.
There's not a ton out there.
I don't think they'd make the power move for Trent Williams.
No.
I don't know if I would do that at this point. Again, I mean, if you're Ryan Poles and you're in the building, I say this all the time, like how honest can you be about where you are and how close you are, right? Because you could say, well, we lost in overtime to the Rams. Could have been in the NFC Championship, won the division. Bring in Trent Williams and we're there. I think they were very turnover dependent on that defense. Deshaun Wright breakout, like they were dependent on a lot of things that are probably difficult to count on again next year.
So that's the other question: is are there any of their pending free agents that you would bring back? Brisker is the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I still like Brisker because he's in year 5. I know he's had the injury/concussion issues and everything, and he's been a little up and down. But I like Brisker. Bayard's getting a little bit older. Yeah. Maybe if you get him cheap, but there's a lot of veteran-type safeties like Byard out there.
Brisker in particular, I think, is like he's a talismanic figure for that defense. I think he's a good player for that defense as well, and I think they could use bringing him back. So that would be one I'd definitely be interested in for their point of view.
And then pass rusher-wise, I think they would be – I'd rather have somebody better, but I think those edge 3 types that I've mentioned a lot, or like a Caleb Von Chason, if he's not a ton of money. Like if you had Montez Sweat and Austin Booker – see how the draft falls as well. The second group of edge rushers are at least intriguing in round 2 that we've mentioned for a couple other teams. But if you had a Joseph Asai, Arden Key, Caleb Von Chason, if you could have one of those guys with Booker and with Sweat, not the worst thing in the world. You got Odiingbo, Jarrett, Gervon Dexter. Could put it all together. I'd rather have a little bit more consistency rushing the passer, though.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't know if they've got the money to be in the Trey Hendrickson, Jalen Phillips, Odafe Owe sweepstakes.
It's also they're in a weird spot as well, where like obviously they're reasonably close to being a legitimate contender right away based off what they did a year ago. But it's also a team that with a young quarterback, a lot of new pieces, you kind of want to be thinking long term about this. Without a ton of money to spend, it's the strange sort of balance between how right now how focused on the immediate future are we versus how focused are we on let's do this for the next 5 years. That's a difficult line to be treading from their point of view.
Hagel's asking about Joe Thuney at left tackle. I don't know if you want to.
I think they've already said that's not an option.
Yeah, I don't think you want to do that long term.
No.
The other option I was going to say, just as a 1-year rental, Joey Bosa as like a pure pass rusher, I think could fit
Cotton wool
this pretty well. Is it too cold?
I mean, he was playing in Buffalo.
That's true. He'll be fine. Joey Bosa as a 1-year rental.
Now, he did start playing worse once it got cold in the winter, but still.
Bubble wrap. Get him out there in November. I like him as a 1-year rental type, potentially. Maybe Khalil Mack.
Ooh.
Back to the Bears.
Back to Chicago.
So I would look at that. I mean, I'd look at like the 1-year Flyers on the edge, and I think you can afford that potentially when you have first-year contract quarterback like Caleb Williams.
Mm-hmm.
So we got some options here.
3-round draft for them. T.J. Parker, edge rusher from Clemson in the first round, 25 overall.
I like that fit. I mean, I like Parker's fit for a lot of teams because I still think he's got top 10 to 15 potential. Just you got to deal with him underwhelming his final year.
Right. Round 2, 57 overall. Jake Golday from Cincinnati, the linebacker.
Render loves him. Now he steps in right next to Tremaine Edmonds.
He was a free agent, right?
He's shoot. No, he's still back. Edwards is a free agent.
Why did I think? Oh, maybe he's a cut candidate, Tremaine.
Cut candidate.
I had in my mind that he's.
Oh man, I mean, I'm in the world where I'm looking at this list of cut candidates, and I can't remember if it's happened yet or not.
Also, nobody can agree on a free agent list. Like the NFL,
every free agent list is different.
The NFL just posted this like off-season portal or whatever. You're like the first thing you do is look at it. And that guy's not a free agent.
They might be including restricted.
Yeah, I'm sure they are,
rights.
but they don't. There's no designation difference. Yeah. It's like I can't trust this list because nothing on it is. Like I've already spotted one problem, which means who knows how many other problems will be.
Got to distinguish.
Frustrating is what it is. Yeah. Okay. So what was I? Third round. Golday in the second round, off the ball linebacker, and then round 3, Jake Slaughter, offensive lineman from Florida, interior offensive lineman center.
No, I like Slaughter. He could, if you don't get the free agent, he's your plug and play center in the third.
Do. It's like a future, short term center.
I like it.
Like you could get, I mean, again, like stopgap, like a guy like Austin Corbett has been a solid starter in the past, right? Is now presumably has very little value right now based off the last couple of years of his career. Maybe Corbett could come in. We don't have to force a center pick now. Corbett can do it for a year if we need it. And then you draft Jake Slaughter in the third round. It's like, well, somewhere along the way, these guys are going to
I like it.
Transition.
And if they do cut Edmonds, might need 2 starting linebackers. Right. It's a good year to completely revamp the linebacker core, whether it is in the draft or free agency as well.
Or T.J. Edwards coming off his weird ankle break thing.
Yeah.
Still
all right, man.
Freakiest injuries I've seen.
We fix?
Yeah.
Fix it.
Fix it.
Bears are fixed, and they're going to win the NFC North. Unless the Detroit Lions win the NFC North. I'm going to predict it for all 4 of these teams.
One of these 4 teams will win the NFC North.
Loaded division.
Guarantee it.
Lions coming off of a disappointing season, offensive line woes, inconsistent week to week. Questions about Ben Johnson and him being in Chicago and how the offense would change. They high end was still pretty good, like they could dominate like they did during the Ben Johnson era, but you just lost a little bit of the week to week consistency. 9-8 season for the Lions. Don't have a third round pick. Got a couple 5s, 3 6s, and a 7. And their first and second round pick as well. Alex Anzalone, a free agent, as well as Amik Robertson, DJ Reader, and El-Kadin Muhammad, who is one of the breakout players of last year. We've talked about the edge rush need a lot for the Lions. He filled it for at least a season.
Yeah.
And we'll see if he ends up getting paid coming off of as a 1-year wonder type for the Lions.
Yeah, first thing I would be doing is re-signing Amik Robertson. He's been really good for them. He's got versatility. He can play inside or outside if they need him to, and they have a need at corner anyway. So unless his numbers astronomical, and I can't imagine why it would be, I would not want to let him leave.
So what do we do with the Lions and their O-line? There's rumors about Taylor Decker. I don't mind. By the way, yes, I agree. Robertson, bring him back. I like it. Got Terry and Arnold. Got DJ Reed. Keep that depth at corner. They've had a lot of injuries these last couple of years, and that's affected things. What do we do with this offensive line? Taylor Decker rumors about retirement, whether it's this year or next year. Probably need a future answer at left tackle. And then center was just a disaster since Frank Ragnow retired and then ripped his hamstring off the bone on his way back. Graham Glasgow's been cut. And so Christian Mahogany, he's playing left guard. Currently, I see Juice Scruggs in there as potential starting center. So they need a center.
Came over as part of the Montgomery trade.
So they have, and maybe that's like what they were doing. Just say, hey, we've got this
I mean,
at
if
least
they've
versatile
identified
player.
him, like if they've identified him as a player they wanted as part of that deal, like maybe they have decided, hey, we like what we've seen in Juice Scruggs. He can play one of those two spots on the interior that they've, that is a problem spot. Like maybe the Lions think that's a really solid answer. Now, maybe they haven't. They've just thrown the dice and brought in an offensive lineman because what the hell?
Yeah, so I don't know if I want to roll with Juice Scruggs in there, but that might.
I mean, I would say I haven't seen anything in Juice Scruggs' career history to suggest that I would want him as one of my two starting offensive linemen with a gap that I have, but maybe the Lions think differently.
So what I wonder if they're doing is, so all of these centers that we've mentioned, the Biotishes and the Poziks and veterans that you could bring in, Luke Fortner, Corbett, they did it with Juice Scruggs, and then they'll just see, do they get the Jake Slaughters or Sam Hoyts in the draft? Do they get those guys? Like they're probably going to have to draft a center at some point,
right?
But Scruggs is their fallback option right now,
right?
But I still think they need depth there. I don't know if left tackle in the first round ends up being the way to go. By the way, I still think the Lions are in really good shape. The foundation is really strong.
Yeah.
The star power, the star players. I know. It's the Brad Holmes comes from the Rams where they did this, right? They did the stars and scrubs, and they had this really strong foundation, and then they just won in the draft, mostly beyond day one. And I think that's where the Lions, they were hitting on those picks, and they're, it's a little bit more uneven, I think, as far as draft results over these last couple of years. That's where they have to keep it going.
Yeah, they are a team that looks like they're in cap trouble, but they're not because they can free up the second most space in the NFL, I think. So, they have money to work with if they want to do it this offseason. Again, a lot of their money they're in a strange spot cap-wise because their number now, like on the outside, looks bad, but they can free up a ton of space. But they're in a world where, in addition to having to bring in some players to their own roster, they're now having to peg a lot of their money going forward to players that they've already drafted, right? These guys that they drafted well, they've already started doing that, obviously, but they're going to continue to do that because they drafted well for a while in a row. So a lot of their money is kind of earmarked for players internally already.
Brian Branch needs to get paid. Jack Campbell needs to get paid.
Right.
And they should, and they will.
Yeah.
Sam Laporta, like that entire draft class of 2023,
exactly,
those guys are going to have to get paid.
But that's why you're probably moving on from the likes of Alex Anzalone, who otherwise you would want to bring back. He's been a good player for them. Like he's been an important part of that team. But it's like, but if we pay you, can we afford to pay Jack Campbell as well? Probably not. He's younger. He's potentially better. That's where we're going with the money.
And just really quick, theory-wise, that is why when we talk about drafting high-value positions in the first round, it's if you're in a situation like the Lions where, look, I'm fine with paying Brian Branch and Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell at these less valuable positions, but you have to gain surplus value somewhere. So having a first contract offensive tackle, a first contract receiver, a first contract pass rusher, it's not the same extreme as quarterback, but it is close. Like it's a big extreme. When you have a cheap edge rusher tackle versus the market, you gain a lot of surplus value. You have to gain it somewhere, especially if you're going to pay a running back line. Like those Campbell, Gibbs, and Branch, probably all going to be top 3 at their position. If they want to keep them, have to be top 3 at their respective positions.
Right.
And if you were, an analytics nerd questioning their draft a couple years ago, this is like, all right, now let's see how smart you were, right? This is your argument, is what I'm just presenting here.
Well, it's like
if you're Brad Holmes, you're like, look, we got the players. Look at what Gibbs does. Look at what Campbell. Look what Branch. Look what Laporta. Look what these 4 players do on the field. But it's actually all 4 of them are probably top 3 at their position if you want to re-sign all of those guys coming up. Again, I'm not questioning it necessarily. I'm just giving the layout of where the Lions are right now.
It's why, theoretically, dynasties shouldn't happen in the NFL. Like, the system is set up to make it extremely difficult for you to maintain, an elite roster all the time. Because even if you do, the thing that some teams have been talking, we're a draft and develop team. We want to draft and develop. Yeah, but, that's not without its drawbacks as well. If you draft really well and you develop really well, then all of a sudden, all of these guys that you drafted and developed have to get paid top 5 money, and that becomes its own problem. So you need to keep drafting and developing really well. The only way out of this is to always draft and develop really well, which we know is just an impossible task. Like, nobody is able to do that at an extremely high level consistently. So eventually you run into a draft where you didn't draft well, and now you're in a pinch because guys are going to get paid. You don't have the replacements because you had one draft that didn't go well, and now you got to spend some money somewhere else, and you're in a financial pinch where you've got to take a step back. And apparently the only way out of that dynamic is to have either Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes. And if you don't have one of those guys, you're not winning it. You're not in a dynasty.
Every dynasty is tied to an elite quarterback, right. So that's what you need.
But that's the problem, really, is that even a team like Detroit, who have done so much right since this regime came in, so many good things, it's still incredibly hard to maintain a roster, even when you do the good things, because you gotta pay the guys that you drafted well.
It's also it's a good problem to have as well. It's it's hard to maintain. It's not a problem, so to speak.
It is a problem, but it's better.
But then you have to hit on second wave free agents, and you have to at some point draft the most valuable positions. So Tyleik Williams in the first round last year, it's fine. He's a fine player, but you need to draft a pass rusher, an offensive tackle in the first round that's going to be a part of the long-term plan here if you're the Lions. So that's where I'm going.
Yeah, the bottom line is
they're another TJ Parker potential team in where they're drafting.
Yeah, the bottom line is you need to keep drafting well. And again, it only becomes more, ironically, it becomes more important if you draft well in the first place because you end up having to pay those guys big-time money.
Anywhere in free agency, because, Al-Qadim Muhammad had a really nice season. Now he's a free agent. Where do we go? The same old problem opposite Aiden Hutchinson, so that you have multiple options rushing the passer.
Yeah, I think you can definitely – I would definitely be players in that free agent edge rusher market. I think there's some useful players you could bring in. It's always hard to know where their markets is. I'd be interested in kicking the tires on Boye Mafe. They're another place that I would throw Malcolm Kuntz for the millionth time. See what he's already shown he can be a situational guy opposite a really high-end pass rusher. Josh Uche, I would kick the tires on as well. I think he can be that useful player.
I'll give you one more name. Well, maybe a couple, but all of the other players that I've mentioned, the Arden Keys and Joseph Asai's, but Jihad Ward, believe it or not, has become a pretty good interior pass rusher or movable pass rusher that I think they could use as well, because the interior pass rush has been a question for the Lions as well. You have Alim McNeil. Levi Onwuzurike comes back after his injury. He's been just constantly injured, though. And you have Tyleik Williams from last year. But Jihad Ward's been a pretty good just situational pass rusher. So I think those are the types of players the Lions are going to need. That defensive line depth, I think, is going to be crucial in free agency.
Yeah, or John Franklin Myers as a versatile defensive lineman to add to them.
I like that.
2-round mock for them because they only had 2 picks, I think, in the top 3 rounds. 17 overall, Keldrick Falk from Auburn, the edge rusher, who, young, talented, apparently is going to the top 4 if you listen to some NFL personnel guys. And then second round, Chris Johnson, the cornerback from San Diego State, who was at the Senior Bowl and looked pretty impressive.
I could deal with that. I'm still workshopping my Keldrick Falk takes. He's going to be an interesting one for me.
I think for a lot of people. I think he's going to be a kind of polarizing draft pick because of a lot of things. But
and I'm a pass rush production translates person, and I'm trying to build up all the excuses because he's 20 years old and he's a really good football player.
Yeah,
he's a good football player.
Even just down to that, I'll like that video at the Combine, the hoop drill, that
Yeah.
everyone was polar opposites to that. I think Falk's just going to be a guy that a lot of people are all over the place.
Just to put a bow on the Lions, love their pass catchers. They're all pretty much locked up. You're putting a lot more pressure on Isaac Tesla, who did a lot of spectacular things last year, but probably lacks the consistency. But if you're asking him to be a 3 behind Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta at tight end, I think he can handle that for sure. Is there anything else we need to do on the offensive line? You have to start thinking about left tackle. If the right tackle's there, if the proper tackle, not the right tackle, proper tackle is there at 17, I think you take him as a draft and develop type of guy. I wonder if Fano makes a lot of sense. Like, would you put him at center with an eye toward he could also play tackle at some point? Spencer Fano?
Yeah. God, dude, when was the last time a guy's been kicked out from center to tackle after any period of time?
So did Jared Valdir? He did it the other way, right? He
went in after.
He wasn't he a center at some point and then went to tackle, or am I
think, didn't he go the other way around in his career?
Went from tackle to center at 6'8" or something like that?
There have been guys.
All my references are somewhere
and
in
Ryan
2014.
Cook did that as well. He went out.
Yeah.
Actually, didn't.
So Graham Barton did it in a pinch last year.
Yeah.
Played tackle. It didn't go well, but
right.
He did.
But that was also not. That was kind of like, right, year 2, we just lost our left tackle. It's the Joe Tooney thing. It's like, right. Who's the
It's not a long-term deal.
Who's the guy that could do this? Yeah, what did Jared Valdir do?
Anyway. Do we fix the Lions?
You're right. Valdir started at center and then kicked out.
And then all of a sudden they're like, you're 6'8", go play left tackle.
And then
did it pretty well.
And then Ryan Cook was a similar for the Vikings, was I think drafted at center and went out to tackle, or I can't remember which way around that was. Maybe the other way around.
Leave a note in the chat if you remember Jared Valdir. Like how this isn't like mentioning the early 2000s.
No, he was good.
This was last decade.
Yeah.
This is early in our football analysis careers.
Yeah.
All right, we got 2 more teams to cover here. Lions are fixed. We gave you a lot of options. Green Bay Packers are up next. They still the youngest team in the NFL? Annual youngest team in the NFL. The draft and develop Green Bay Packers. They made the power move for Micah Parsons. Do not have a first-round pick. And back to the playoffs again this year, losing to the Bears. 9-7 record for the Packers. They'll have a pick in round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 3 sevens. Left tackle Rasheed Walker is a free agent. Quay Walker at linebacker. Elgton Jenkins, potential cut candidate here. So we got some questions on the offensive line for the Packers. They're one of the few teams in the NFL that has a very specific left tackle need. Not a lot of left tackle needs around the NFL with Walker hitting free agency here.
Yeah, and as we said, like it's not like there's an overabundance of those guys to pay. And the number one guy on most people's list at that spot would be the guy they're letting walk.
Yeah.
So it's not like I don't see a solution to that in free agency.
Look,
unless you want to go with the Josh Jones.
I would rather bring in Braxton Jones on the cheap compared to Rasheed Walker.
But this is the thing. Like, what is Braxton Jones? If Dan Moore Jr. is commanding $20+ million on the open market, and the only viable left tackle this year is Rasheed Walker, who this team is letting walk, what does Braxton Jones get paid?
I don't know. They might just roll with Jordan Morgan, too, their former first-round pick that's moved all around the offensive line.
Basically every offensive lineman they've got played left tackle at one point.
Oh, yeah. Everybody plays everything. Zach Tom's a right tackle. Everyone else is a left.
Right. So, yeah, maybe
Did
Jordan
Tom
Morgan's
play
a left tackle.
I think he did. Maybe it's not as big of a question if they just trust Morgan and that's what they're going to roll with.
I'd be surprised if they couldn't get a draft pick out of somebody for Elgton Jenkins. I know he's on a lot of money, which is why he's a cut candidate for them in the first place. But there are teams there. I mean, how many teams have we run through saying they need all 3 interior offensive linemen? You're telling me one of those isn't willing to flip a mid-round pick for Elgton Jenkins, even on his contract?
I would be.
Same.
I mean, you're not getting – now, last year, Tooney goes for a 3, and he's not as good as Tooney, especially with
but he is.
Tooney's got the durability and everything. Jenkins does not. But maybe it ends up being a 5 or a 6.
He is only 30 years old, though, so –
yeah, which is an ancient for Rashawn Gary's also one of those.
He's also a cut candidate.
Candidates is what I'm saying.
Right.
Because you just kind of need him. Like if he's back, you just need him to be better. So fix the Packers. Gary, rush better.
Gary
rush better opposite. Like with all these opportunities you're getting with the Micah Parsons.
I mean, there is something
attention.
to, they're getting Micah Parsons back healthy and impactful the way he was before, that we already know that transforms this defense into something completely different. But yeah, Rashawn Gary's earning $19.5 non-guaranteed $1 million. That's going to get you. I mean, that's a big bullseye in your contract.
The Packers, just going back to the O-line, it's been an interesting one because I think they've still sustained offense. They've run the ball well enough the last couple of years. Love has had good production when he's been out there. They've been fine. I think they've managed with like an okay offensive line, and they might have to do that again.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting because you got Green Bay, who's one of the most free agent averse teams in football, right? They don't dabble in the market, but you traded your first round picks, to Dallas, and suddenly you're looking at a draft where your first pick is at 52, 54. Where are they picking? 52. Like 52 is the first time they're picking in this draft.
Yep.
And that's tough to go into a draft with a glaring need being like, we got to get a player at this position, and the first time we come up on the board is 52.
What else from a roster perspective? Like corners where I was going to go next. We talked about their cornerback situation a lot last year. I theorized, hey, maybe they do play a little bit more zone than other teams. They could neglect the position more than others. They played a little bit more man. And I thought early in the season you saw, if Micah Parsons is creating the havoc that he's creating, it makes Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine and a lot of those players look better. It was just tough to sustain, especially when Parsons went down. But I would love to see an upgrade on the outside.
Yeah, it's a strange cornerback room. It does seem like they've generally neglected it in terms of serious investment in it. But they do have a bunch of useful players. I would want to see an outside guy that you're just 100% confident in, a true someone you can, like the guys that they thought they had and then moved on from, whether it was Eric Stokes, who was a first-round corner, whether it was, who did they trade away? Trade away. Did they cut him or trade him?
When?
Jair Alexander.
Oh, Jair. Yeah.
Another first-round corner. So the guys they actually did invest in.
Yeah, those guys just ran there.
I'd love to see another one of those. I don't know where you're getting them from because, again, you're not picking until the second round.
You want to see them draft another?
I would just want to see some sort of significant investment in just a surefire outside perimeter boundary corner that you're confident in.
I'll say this. I mean, given if they're picking at 52, D'Angelo Pons is currently 53 on the consensus board. If you could get him, my guy Pons.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Do that in your mock.
I just did it, and he wasn't available. Let's do it again. Let's force it to happen.
We could just tell people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be in the mock. Just make Pons the pick.
Okay.
He's the pick at 52.
D'Angelo Pons is the pick at 52, regardless of when he gets drafted.
I'd love to see, they're really light up front as far as defensive tackle. As far as defensive tackle goes. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much they want to bulk up a little bit, get that big-bodied nose tackle type. Caden McDonald's been going in a lot of first rounds, but, those types of nose tackles sometimes are available in the second. Maybe he's a possibility there. What other good defensive tackles? Are there cheap defensive tackles we can look at? Shelby Harris. You're not getting the size, but you might get a 1 year of good solid play from a Shelby Harris.
What about in the third round, just for the name? Not just for the name, but in part because of the name. Dante Corleone.
The Godfather.
The Godfather.
Oh, Corleone would
local
be a great pick from Cincinnati.
335 pounds at 6'1".
We were still at PFF. He had the number one run defense grade as a sophomore or something at defensive tackle.
Still a good run defender.
Forget the sim. We got Pons in the second. We got Corleone in the third.
Do it ourselves. We got the Godfather and D'Angelo Pons.
Perfect.
There's a draft.
We are fixing
in the first 3 rounds.
We're fixing the Packers.
Easy. We could do this.
What else needs to happen here? So you're going to lose a Romeo Doubs. You don't necessarily need to directly replace him because you've had a ton of receivers with Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden. Obviously, a lot more expected of Golden this year.
Yeah, so Golden's going to be interesting because historically bad production from a first-round wide receiver, and yet I think most people that watched him play did not come out of his season discouraged. Actually, it's no, he's pretty good. So, but at some point, those two things need to meet, right? You can't just be it doesn't work if you just always watch the tape. You're like, man, this receiver's really good. Why does he never catch the football? At some point, they need to actually, so this is I think a big year for him. I think you're right that they are comfortable letting Romeo Doubs walk, assuming that Matthew Golden can effectively step into that role. Christian Watson is a different type of receiver, the vertical threat, big body, different. Jaden Reed is still a very good player. Tucker Kraft is going to be coming back. But I think the idea would be Dobbs leaves, Golden steps into that production profile, and that's the player that he can be. I'm willing to at least, I think that's a solid plan pending seeing how it goes. Maybe I'll have a different opinion this time next year, but I think that's okay to run with for the moment.
And then, on the defensive line, so I'm not sure exactly what they do with Rashawn Gary. They're another team. You've got Lucas Van Ness there as well, who played a lot better last year than he had in his first couple seasons. So, on paper, it's a good group, right? With Parsons, Gary as your number 2 pass rusher, he just underwhelmed last year.
Unless he gets cut.
So are they another team for all my list of the Arden Keys of the world? You have to bring in one of those players.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. So it's not like they never dabble in the free agent market. It's just that they're usually not big players.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll be big names, but right. Arden Key, Joseph Asai, all of these players, Arnold Ebiketie, that are number 3 type of pass rushers, whether Gary's there or not. Now you're looking at rolling 4 deep with Van Ness and some flexibility to move some players around and create some mismatches. I think that would be a pretty good couple of options for their D-line. You need some sort of big-bodied nose tackle type. They got T.J. Slayton left last year. That's very undersized at D tackle. Would love to see the Godfather or someone equivalent.
Hell yeah.
Plugging up the middle.
Or the Big Citrus. Just nickname draft.
Or Big Citrus.
Just go for the coolest nickname on the defensive line.
Packers are going Big Citrus or the Godfather.
What about both?
Why not both?
You could pair the Godfather with the Big Citrus up the middle. Nobody's running on that.
All of our offseason moves are we either do that or we have the all-hair team for the Jags. It's Anzalone and Gardeck and Wingard and
look, I mean,
Fabio. Just get Fabio out
we're
there.
The GM for all 32 teams, and as we know, right, there's some bad GMs out there, right? Someone's got to just go the hair route. Someone's got to just draft for nicknames. It's not like everyone's going to be a good GM. If your team is the team that drew the bad version of our GM, I'm unlucky.
I'm going to text Tom Telesco and say, did anyone ever just suggest we draft this guy based off the nickname alone? We'll just see if that's a thing. All right, what else are we doing for the Packers? They're always. I feel like they're always one of the most difficult teams to do the rebuild for, because, like you said, they're rarely going to make an aggressive move,
right?
And then they did, and they go get Micah Parsons, right? Yeah. Very aggressive move to go get Micah Parsons outside of their nature,
which ironically has now meant that they have very little room to do anything of any description.
Yeah, but their team, the last 3 years,
no, I know they're still
has been young, and it's been. Most of their starters return year over year. They've just been returning a lot of players, and they have just a whole bunch of options at receiver. They have a whole bunch of versatile offensive linemen who could play multiple positions. They have a whole bunch of slot corners who could play. It's just a whole team of versatility, move pieces around. Last year at this time, I was complaining that they didn't have star power, right? Because of this, it's it's a whole bunch of starters with no star power. They go get the Micah Parsons star power. But they're a difficult team to say, add this piece in free agency and add that piece, because they probably won't do it.
Yeah.
And here they are, returning a lot of players. They're still young, and I think they're still one of the better teams in the NFC. And I think Jordan Love is I don't want to say the most volatile quarterback, but I think he's got as high end of any quarterback in the NFC to go on this run and, get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And look, I think the bottom line is they're actually one of the teams out there that doesn't need that much fixing. I think
they've been setting up for this.
But I think people feel worse about this team than they actually should because of the way it ended. Things went five straight defeats. It's one of them was a fake defeat. They rested everybody. It doesn't count, but it does because it's 5 consecutive, right? This is the thing. So you feel bad about it, but you forget that when they had Micah Parsons, they looked like about as good as any team in the NFL. And then they lost Micah Parsons, and everything changed, right? And you can't not factor that in. They're getting Micah Parsons back. That's, if you want to frame it that way, that's the biggest move that's going to get made this offseason, right? Maybe Raiders with Mendoza, but somebody's getting Micah Parsons back onto their team. We already saw the kind of transformative effect that could have. So this is not a team that needs significant overhauling. It's a team that needs some tinkering around the edges. As luck would have it, that's all they really have the money to do anyway. So they will tinker around the edges. They've got a draft that they can add, the big citrus or the Godfather to, get some beef in the middle. They're not going to be doing. I think you could use to add another running back to that group. Josh Jacobs was really good last year. Outside of him, they don't have much. Marshawn Lloyd just doesn't want to ever play a healthy game in his life. So they're going to have to go find another running back. But you can do that with your lower draft picks, day 3, grab a running back.
Boom. Got it. Packers fixed?
Sure.
We do it? All right, let's wrap it up. The NFC North with the Minnesota Vikings. Just did Matt Collar's show yesterday. It's just been posted. If you're a Vikings fan, check it out. Matt Collar, our favorite Minnesota Vikings insider, Purple Insider. What are we doing with the Vikings here? Coming off of a disappointing season. J.J. McCarthy at quarterback. All the reports that we're going the veteran route here.
They're just done with him.
Yeah.
Which is a little harsh. I mean, look, he's not been good. But I guess the problem with this whole Minnesota Vikings, J.J. McCarthy dynamic is that at no point has anybody ever really known what they think of him, right? We're all projecting from they drafted him, from like who thought what. They looked like maybe they were going to start him year 1, and then he got hurt, and we turned to Sam Darnold. Darnold was amazing, and then it was like we'll go with J.J. year 2. But it's like that might have just been a financial decision and I'm scared of Sam Darnold decision more than anything to do with we don't really know ever what they thought of him, and that changes everything, right? Like if they had immense confidence in him all the way along, and again, people would be like, well, they said this. It doesn't matter what they said out loud. You're not going to trash your quarterback that you drafted in the first round no matter what you think of him, right? You're only going to say good things from that point. So that's irrelevant. The point is, if they genuinely did think this guy is awesome, he's going to be our guy, this is great, we get the offensive line overhaul, blah, 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 well, then it seems pretty harsh that after admittedly some pretty rough play last year, you're just like, he's dead to us now, we're going to go find a veteran. If, however, they never really thought he was going to be the guy, well, then all you're doing is confirming your priors. It's like we gave him a look. He was garbage. We kind of thought that would be the case. So now we're done with it. We're going somewhere else.
So let's just throw this one out there because we talked to Kyler Murray a little bit. I mentioned Kyler quite a bit on Collar's show, and I thought, again, if the goal is to win 10 games next year, for teams that have talent, Kyler's the best option out there. That's what I would say. It's the best option for if you want to win 10 games, go to the playoffs. Kyler on a team that has talent at the price that he's going to get paid is your best option. Other than hitting on a rookie, like you have Mendoza and he's awesome, or you draft a quarterback and he's awesome. It's best option.
And the Vikings, this is a team that is dealing with salary cap pressure. Let's put it that way, right? Like they are talking about, do we move Jonathan Grenard for salary cap reasons? They've already cut Jonathan Allen for salary cap reasons. TJ Hawkinson is seen as a potential cut candidate because he's due $16 million. And even though he's a really good player for them, it's like, do we cut him because we're tight against the cap? Like this is a team that is dealing with salary cap pressure. One way to alleviate salary cap pressure is by having your starting quarterback earning like $1 million, right? So it does make a lot of sense. Now, Kyler Murray, unconventional quarterback. Does Kevin O'Connell want to deal with an unconventional quarterback? He knows how to run an offense. He knows how to call an offense. He knows what works. Does he want to opt into, I don't even know how to make this offense work for Kyler Murray yet? Do you even want to mess with that? I don't know. But in terms of what it does for the salary cap, it's huge for them. It's a cheat code.
So the other rumor at the Combine, and based off of Derek Carr and his podcast, Homegrown, the quote, here's the quote.
What do we got?
Would I do it? Absolutely I would, in response to coming back. I told you 2 things. I have to be healthy, and I'd want a chance to win a Super Bowl. And obviously that's a tough thing to find. That's hard to do. That's not easy. End quote. And it doesn't take Dick Tracy to figure out of all the teams that need a quarterback.
You're the most boomer.
It's the best.
It's the last time anybody dropped a Dick Tracy.
I could have said Colombo. My dad would say Colombo.
Jesus.
Colombo would have said, it's not the Browns, it's not the Dolphins, it's not the Cardinals, it's not the Jets, it's not the Raiders, it's the Vikings, the teams that need a quarterback and have a chance to at least compete. So it was Derek Carr who would have to unretire
and then be traded
from the Saints.
So that's it's a very interesting thing. That was a very popular rumor at the Combine that Derek Carr is going to be the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings this year. I think it makes some sense for both sides in that Derek Carr, for all his faults as a quarterback, is a pretty steady hand. And maybe Kevin O'Connell after last year. I mean, if the Minnesota Vikings had just a steady hand last year, they'd have probably been a playoff team and a contender. But they didn't. They didn't have anything like a steady hand, and that was the problem. So from their perspective, you can easily see, oftentimes when things go badly, the solution tends to be veering in the opposite direction and overcorrecting. Like you could see the Minnesota Vikings being like, the solution to last year is Derek Carr, and going in that way. And from Carr's perspective, you could easily see him looking at this Vikings roster and be like, I got Justin Jefferson, I got Jordan Addison, I got TJ Hawkinson, I got an offensive line. We can win a Super Bowl with this,
I mean, I would also make this argument. I mean, you could say, well, Kevin O'Connell, he was not able to get the most out of J.J. McCarthy. He didn't develop him.
Right.
But every time he's been given a veteran quarterback, Sam Darnold came in as like a 333 lifetime quarterback or whatever and wins 14 and goes on and wins a Super Bowl. The next year, Kirk Cousins goes from dead smack league average win-loss record to, they win a lot of games, 17-8 or whatever it was. Under O'Connell, he recalibrated Kirk to be more aggressive. He got the most out of Darnold. Hey, you just give – Josh Dobbs came in off the street and looked viable for a couple games when they needed him. Nick Mullins looked viable when they needed him for a couple games. Give him a veteran quarterback. Kevin O'Connell makes magic, and he elevates all of them. You could easily make that argument in the building with no GM in Minnesota and say, you give me Derek Carr, and for different reasons, you give me Kyler Murray, and you say, look, he's going to run the offense differently, and he doesn't see the middle of the field, but he's got special running ability, and maybe those balance out. But, hey, we'll maximize Kyler. We'll get the most out of Derek Carr. You could easily make that argument.
Yeah,
if you're in the building.
I don't think it's fair to say, the Kevin O'Connell thing isn't real because he couldn't make J.J. McCarthy work, right? Like there are quarterbacks that you draft that are never going to work, no matter who the coach is, right? That's why they're busts. They're just not going to work out. And I know that Kevin O'Connell, in particular, has been at the forefront of this idea of teams fail quarterbacks before quarterbacks fail teams. And maybe there's something to that. Like I said, you could easily look at this and say this is a pretty harsh treatment of J.J. McCarthy based off the limited playing time or runway that he's had. So there's truth to that. But maybe if J.J. McCarthy is just not the guy and is never going to be the guy, can you really blame Kevin O'Connell for not being able to turn him into the guy, even if it was never there in the first place? Whereas I think you can judge him on, here's a series of veteran quarterbacks that do appear to have all had the best version of themselves connected to him.
Part of the problem is, and last year at this time, it was an appealing option for Minnesota because we didn't know how good J.J. McCarthy would be. It was like, well, they've got this veteran-laden team. They won 14 games. You drop this first-year starter into the mix, and he's set up for success. When he doesn't have success, now all of a sudden it's like, well, you can't afford to just give him one more year. If you were the Jets or the Dolphins or the Cardinals or teams that aren't expected to win this year, you could just say, all right, well, see what happens in year two. Give him another half year and see what happens. I don't know if Minnesota can afford to because Kwesi's out, and the best thing that happened, whether it was Kwesi or not, the best thing that happened on his watch was how well Minnesota picked players from current NFL players, whether free agents or via trade, and built a pretty solid roster. Jonathan Grenard, who's now in the trading block, Andrew Van Ginkel, TJ Hawkinson. They've done a really nice job doing that. They have not drafted well, and they have not drafted often. And that's why now they're in this half in, half out type of deal where they don't have a ton of young players to build around, and they have the cap issues, or at least questions enough where you have to, maybe trade Grenard. Now, the reason why they can also trade him is because they did draft Dallas Turner, and for a fraction of the price, he could come in, start opposite Van Ginkel, and you might have a drop off, but not significant enough, and that's a good move, having Dallas Turner as a replacement. But yeah, you're in this spot where they were a veteran-laden team, and they haven't backfilled via the draft, and it's they've got some spots to fill.
They do. It's a weird where in a number of ways this roster construction from Kwesi fits exactly the way you would expect a finance kind of guy to go about things. Like, it's the diversity of portfolio. It's not putting all your eggs in one basket. It's doing things in a variety of different ways. But and honestly, roster-wise is not really why you got fired. Like, from the sounds of it, it's more of a interpersonal relationships type of deal, office politics. But when you see everybody reacting to the firing, it's like everyone just goes, look at these drafts. Can't survive with drafts like this. It's like, you actually can. I mean, the roster's pretty good, right? It's like there's easily a case to be said that the roster is more than good enough to maintain the current course with the GM, right? That's not, but you see that people judge you on drafts. So, like, the Vikings have not drafted well. They haven't drafted often. They have 9 picks, I think, this year. They could use a really good draft this year.
I mean, if people online can't even look at a draft, even when it's good, they can't even tell that it's good.
Right.
Because they think, well, you missed this pick.
But I think there's a number of reasons why, like, things are pretty good looking for this team, even though obviously quarterback is a problem area, and that's what everything hinges on. But one of the reasons I think that is it's not as simple as it's getting, revisited as, well, you just should have kept Sam Darnold. One of the reasons they moved off Sam Darnold is because they used the money that they would have had to pay Sam Darnold to invest in the offensive line, which had arguably been the biggest reason that they just got their ass kicked at the end of the last season, right? Yeah. The Lions and the Rams consecutively really got after that offensive line, which then caused Sam Darnold to melt down, and that was bad, right? They looked at that and said, that is a terminal Achilles heel, glass ceiling that this offense has. We need to go and invest in the offensive line, and we can't really do that if we pay money to Sam Darnold. So let's throw it to 9. Let's hope that he's good, and let's use the money to go make the offensive line in front of him better. Problem is, you didn't really see that offensive line last year because they kept getting hurt.
Right.
So I showed you that chart earlier, which was the most common offensive line combination for any team in the NFL, each team rather, ranked. The Vikings' most common combination last season was not the starting 5 that they would want to have had when they invested the money in it, right? Their most common offensive line combination was Christian Darrisaw at left tackle. That's who they'd have wanted. Donovan Jackson at left guard, to draft the rookie. That's who they would have wanted. Blake Brandel, right, at center.
And he might be the center going forward.
Right,
now.
But not who they would have wanted, because Ryan Kelly was supposed to be the solution there as a veteran free agent. Will Fries at right guard, that's who they'd have wanted, and then Brian O'Neill at right tackle, that's who they wanted. But, so number one, the most common combination was not the starting 5 that they would have wanted heading into the season.
Pretty close, though, 4 out of 5.
But it's not the one, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's not what they thought their offensive line was heading into the season. Number 2, the most common combination appeared on less than a quarter of their snaps this season.
That's low. Right.
So 24.95%, or 25, basically a quarter of their snaps. So those 2 things in combination, it wasn't the 5 they wanted to have, and it was only available for a quarter of their snaps. This is a better football team, theoretically, than it looked last year.
All right, what are we doing here? Are we going to go? I would go.
We've already given Kyler to somebody else. I think,
but like we don't live in that. Like I would go after Kyler at least if we're just in a vacuum.
I think across shows, you can double dip and say, well, but in the same show, we should probably.
Either way, we could still say if I'm the Steelers, I would pursue Kyler Murray. If I am the Vikings, I would pursue Kyler Murray. Yeah. If not,
okay, let's pursue him, but assume he's signing in Pittsburgh.
I would do the Derek Carr.
So
thing.
We're signing Derek Carr.
Yeah.
They have to trade for him. It's not as simple as just signing him. But I think the trade will be nothing.
Yeah.
Like effectively,
late round.
Yeah. So you go down from 9 to 8 picks, and it's one of your day 3 picks, right? Yeah. Because number one, the Saints have no leverage. Like he's retired.
Right.
And the worst thing,
he's literally unretiring to.
But trade. Literally, the worst thing that can happen is if the Saints try and play hardball and say, no, we want a 2nd-round pick for Derek Carr. Derek Carr can actually unretire, activate his contract, and screw the Saints. So, like, the worst thing that can happen is for them to be...
shows up. I want to compete with Tyler.
Exactly. Stuck. Like, you still own my contract. I've unretired, and now I want the job, right? And now you have to carry his contract until you get rid of him. So, I'm sure that it'll just be a day 3 flip pick. The other funny thing is Mike Florio is out here being like, no team has reached out to the Saints for Derek Carr. Yeah, but this just means they haven't got that far in the process yet. That doesn't mean Derek Carr isn't unretiring and signing for somebody. Like, what do you... Again, assuming the Saints have no leverage and they're basically a passenger in this, that's irrelevant.
It's like the teams that are saying, I don't like what Team X is doing so far. It's like, yeah, the The year hasn't started yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Florio's gotcha. Like, this rumor is clearly ridiculous because nobody's asked the Saints about it. Yeah, it's because nobody sees the Saints as an obstacle for this.
Do you want to trade Grenard?
No.
I wouldn't either, but I get the idea of Dallas Turner for, much cheaper. You probably take a hit, but he starts. Maybe Grenard fetches a 2. I think you get something pretty good for him.
Yeah.
Unless it's a massive restructure ask. In a vacuum, if you're paying Grenard $18 million a year right now, that is an absolute steal for the trading team. If he wants to revamp this thing and make 25 over the next 3 years or something, that's a different question.
Right. No, I would try and keep him around. I would be happy enough to cut either/both of the defensive tackles. They've already gotten rid of Jonathan Allen. I would send Hargrave as well. Just clear up that. I think those were mistake moves.
Jalen Redmond's been fantastic.
Yes.
Probably could use more depth there at defensive tackle.
Right. Either go to the free agent market. Again, they don't look like they have any money. They can free up some cash. Either go to the free agent market, try and bring in somebody that you can just plug in as a body and not need to reach in the draft.
Corner has remained a need.
Yep.
And maybe that's where the first round lands.
And their most likely first round pick, I would think. Isaiah Rodgers has been a pretty good player for them and had an amazing game. Byron Murphy Jr. is a pretty useful slot guy. I don't know if he's 100% secure in the roster either. But either way, you need at least another corner on the outside.
Avion Terrell's been a pretty common first-round pick out of Clemson.
At this point, I would be surprised if Minnesota didn't come out of the first round with a defensive back. I would be willing to say they could draft a safety either, but I would expect corner, maybe safety. If it's not a DB, I'd be shocked.
Ryan Kelly's injury history has them with the center need that we talked about. They could go Brandel, who is pretty good. Brandel? Pretty good.
Yeah.
Or they could lean into this whole Biotish thing.
Yeah.
Keep going. Everybody signed Tyler Biotish. See, that works. We could do that across shows.
Are you keeping TJ Hawkinson?
So he's another cut candidate. It would be the time of his career where that
money
would make sense. And it is it's not the worst time to get younger at tight end. There's a lot of tight ends in the draft. Second wave of free agency, there are some options as well. So I would rather keep him, but I know this is the time when financially it probably makes sense.
And that's a lot of money for a guy. Like him surviving that number would be quite rare.
Where could we go here? Josh Oliver, who's more of a blocking tight end.
Yeah.
I don't think you're breaking the bank for an Isaiah Likely. Maybe Chigakonkwo as a compliment to Oliver.
I'd be intrigued in Connor Hayward. There's something about him I kind of like when I watch him play, and yet he never has a lot of production.
He feels like the guy who would only work for the touchdown passes he catches in Pittsburgh. And
I know. But I'd at least kick the tires on a Connor Hayward. I think the draft is definitely they should add a tight end in the draft, 100%. But I'd be interested in him.
All right, what else? Anything? Wide receiver 3 is a question too. That's the other place where they could draft a receiver. Jordan Addison's probably not going to get a long-term deal from them.
Addison's too much of an off-field risk at this point. He's sort of in the Rashee Rice bucket, albeit with different alleged crimes. I don't know you can trust him going forward at this point. So you've got Justin Jefferson. Obviously, he's absolutely secure and elite. Ty Felton they drafted last year did nothing. You're letting Jalen Naylor hit the open market, presumably. He was pretty good last year, actually, but hasn't been a consistent force for them. So it's Jefferson and nobody else. So, yes, absolutely, wide receiver is a sneaky need for this team.
Do we get if Carr's the quarterback, do we sign Rashid Shaheed as the deep threat?
I would love Rashid Shaheed for this team. He also he's a return man. They had a pretty good return game, actually, with Price. But, bring him in, solve all those problems.
Second wave type of free agents, Calvin Austin, who I know you like.
Do like
Christian Kirk. At this point in his career, I'd rather some kind of speed from the slot to replace Naylor. All right.
They could also use running back, by the way. You've got they already cut Aaron Jones, right? Or at least informed him that he was not going to be back. You got Jordan Mason there.
Jordan Mason and a complimentary back. So they're probably in this Tyler Algier, maybe not Algier, but Rashad White in that second wave of running back.
Yeah, they're another team I think that really needs a good draft. They actually, and in the mid rounds in particular, they're a team that has a bunch of picks in the mid rounds and actually kind of needs to get some useful contributing players at a bunch of different positions out of those mid round picks.
Chat suggesting Derek Carr and Devontae Adams reunion. The Twitter sphere, too, was also suggesting you trade Justin Jefferson for all the Chiefs picks.
Look,
that was just people saying, oh, this would be fun with Mahomes.
Justin Jefferson falls into the category of player that I am simply never trading. I don't understand the purpose of roster construction if it isn't to find and keep players like Justin Jefferson. There's nothing you can ever throw me that's going to make me go, I'll opt into the mystery boxes. Like, there's no number of mystery boxes you can put in front of me that makes me go, it's better than the guy I have that I know.
What
is
if you
amazing.
Could trade up to 2031 now and you could get 5 straight first rounders?
Right, but it's like
that might be the one.
Again, it's like the Randy Moss thing, right? There's simply nothing you can put in front of me that makes me want that more than Randy Moss. Like, I want Randy Moss is one of the greatest players to ever play the game. That's why we do this. I'm not trading him in. There's an unlimited number of mystery boxes. Keep him. I want Randy Moss. I want Justin Jefferson. I'm not trading him away. Go away.
I'm with you. Keep Justin Jefferson. All right, do we fix the Vikings?
Yeah, what does their draft look like? So, okay, let's just start.
Did you get a corner in the first?
I did. So I got Avion Terrell in the first. I just got Skylar Bell in the second round. Pick number 82 is on, and I got Max Clare, tight end from
there you go.
Ohio State. Oh, we got another third round pick. Where are we going with
Needs
this one?
and values there. Needs and values.
The Godfather's available here. But
he'd be a good fit for them as well. Next to Jalen Redmond.
We got a safety.
Godfather. He just needs to be in one of the black and blue
I'm
divisions.
taking another DB of some description. Zakee Wheatley from Penn State is going to be my third round.
Some safety depth, some corner, first round corner. Like it.
Yep. Avion Terrell, Skylar Bell, wide receiver from UConn, Max Clare, tight end from Ohio State, and then Zakee Wheatley, Penn State safety.
Depending on what Minnesota does at QB, I think it's one of the more competitive divisions once again.
Yeah.
Lions are currently the favorites, by the way.
And again, if they just get average quarterback play, last year I think this team would have been a playoff team with average quarterback play. Theoretically, the same thing should be true this year.
So there we go. Every team, AFC, NFC Centrals, the North, they're done. We're 3/4 of the way through the league. We'll do the Souths tomorrow, AFC, NFC South tomorrow. If you missed the previous episodes, AFC, NFC West and East, each of the last couple days, even if you're not a fan of those teams. Fun discussion going through potential options. And as I always say, every team in a different spot in their team building, different needs, different levels of resources. That's what makes this puzzle so fun, trying to put it all together. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in. We've got tomorrow at 9, and then the program reminder for Monday. We will not go live at 9 a.m. unless something massive breaks. We could go live anytime throughout the weekend with big news. If there's a big trade, a release, whatever it might be, always subject to go live. But Monday, free agency starts essentially at noon. The legal tampering period, that's when things start to get announced. So we're going to go live at noon on Monday instead of 9. Noon Monday, and we'll go as long as we need to as the news breaks and go from there. So be sure to join us during your workday, Monday at noon.
Yep. Free agent frenzy.
All right. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. More. Check the mic.